What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Season Gaming Bitcast, episode 289. I am your host, Ainsley Bowden. We got a good show for you today, a bunch of games to talk through. I'm excited about. Looking forward to this one, boys. And I realized, of course, that we are just 11 episodes from episode 300, which we should probably do something for. We'll have to figure that out.
Probably.
Yeah. But anyway. Anyway, we are here. It's a nice Sunday morning, at least where the four of us are. So welcome all from around the world. Ty, Guy, Travis. Looking dapper, my friend. I know we're playing the hell out of No Rest for the Wicked, which we're going to talk about today. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. McClunky, everyone. It's nice to be here.
McClunky, Travis.
That was very flat from you, my friend. That was very just low key.
Well,
yeah,
I'm
call it
keeping
flat. I called it polite and pleasant. It's nice to hear
Okay.
Travis just kind of be kind to all of us.
Reviews are in.
Give it
Travis,
10 minutes.
Travis was the reviews of my intro are here. Hogue is saying it was nice and polite. Ains is saying it was a little predictable. What are we gonna do? Can't please them all, folks. Can't
Split
please them all.
decision as always. Yeah, no kidding. Mr. Hogue Law, host of the Hogue Law channel, Hangouts and Headlines, and a host of other things, actually, is here. How we doing, my friend?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, I had a big weekend because I wanted to celebrate one of my friends' 200,000th subscribers. You might know Lawn Lumber. And I was on with a couple of other of my lawyer friends, Emily D. Baker and Ian Runkle, who I know has been on this show. And we were on that. He does a Friday night stream that I haven't been able to participate in for the last year and a half because it's too late for me. And I made an effort to get on that show, and I've been paying for it all weekend. But it was a great time, and I am so happy to be in a place where I can go on those shows and have those conversations, be on shows like this one. And we did talk about the Bitcast there. And I'm looking forward to talking about video games with you all because I didn't play No Rest for the Wicked, and I want to know more about it.
Fantastic. I am
It apparently
happy to talk
shocks
about
us.
it. Apparently shocks us, yeah, and I'll get to that for sure. 200,000 subs, man. That's a huge accomplishment for him. So congrats. His name's Kurt, right?
Like
It's
a
Kurt,
rocket
right?
to the moon. Yeah.
Wow. Who would have known that Big Boy Hogue is the small guy in his friends group, you know? When he gets around his friends, he's just a little fish.
I know, man. SG is aspiring to get to Hogue's level. Come on. Especially with the way YouTube has been acting the past month or two. Good Lord. I don't know what's going on. It's a mess out there. But anyway, Mr. Rodriguez, looking wicked this morning. How we doing, my friend?
I'm good, man. I'm here again. I made it. I'm still breathing.
Every Sunday Dan makes it is an unexpected surprise.
It really
it's
is.
beautiful.
It's a blessing.
Now,
It's a blessing
given
for me and for everybody here.
Given the
That's what I
topic
do.
of today's show, saying that Dan looks wicked, are you saying that he looks like he hasn't gotten any rest?
I think it's
I'm looking at his shirt because I can't see the rest of it.
I see.
He's saying there ain't no rest for the wicked.
Oh, Wicked Smart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it's
Wicked
a Northeast
Smart.
shirt. Gotcha.
That's funny.
Yeah.
No rest for the wicked smart. Too busy being smart, eh? Guy.
Oh man.
Oh man, but should be a good show. We've got a lot of games to talk about. So we're gonna be talking about I've got to talk about Witchfire. We've got No Rest for the Wicked, of course. We've got Fallout continuing the resurgence. We got a little game called Harold Halibut. I'm hoping we can talk about. I know Hogue's gone deep into Suicide Squad finally, which I'm happy for. We've got Kingdom Come Deliverance 2.
And I have a game that is a surefire hit in Hogue House that I don't know whether you all will like, but I'm definitely going to talk about it. So
Excellent. Hogue's Notes upcoming. Love it.
There.
Yes, we will.
Notes. We need a Hogue Notes graphics.
I know. I just haven't gotten to it. It's coming. It's coming.
Putting out the call, everyone. We need a Hogue's Notes graphics to introduce that segment. That's what I'm.
Yeah, if anyone wants to beat me to creating that, that would be very welcome because I've been just
Just make sure we use the
we need to make that shorter, by the way, Ains. Hogue talks too much.
Yeah,
true.
That's why we have that's why we have an outro graphic too, so that as soon as we're done hearing from you, we just Hogue's Notes.
We just need to use the goat as the background for all of our graphics going forward. So whatever it is that we do,
no matter what it is, it's just the goat.
Yeah, it's with whatever we just change the lighting on.
Well, for all we know, Hoag's Notes could be a bloat goat. That could be part of the problem.
It could be.
Hoag's goat.
Hoag's goat. So we've got a couple things just before we get into the games I want to mention. So I want to give a big shout out and thank you to several of our viewers who have contributed to my extra life. As I mentioned a couple times, we're raising extra money during the month of April for a big event in July for the local children's hospital here. Some very, very generous donations have come through from some of our regulars here. I sent out thank yous from the site, of course, but just wanted to say it out loud. Thank you so much for that. It's super generous and very, very appreciated. And then, of course, we've got Tides Picks this week, which I'm not even sure why if I'm forgetting a reference, but we went Wizard of Oz this week. She did.
The reference is in the name. Against the Tide clarified this on Twitter.
I didn't see it.
When she sees the word wicked, she thinks of the Broadway show.
Oh, I see.
Okay. Fair enough. So here we go. And Travis,
nice.
I mean, you have no heart. So
dude,
there we are.
Crushing it. I make a great Tin Man. You do. Actually, we all kind of look kind of amazing, to be honest. Like, this is maybe my favorite one so far.
It's pretty good. I feel like I could actually look like that if I tried. Like, just dressed up.
You kind of look like Jim Carrey's joke or Grinch. You know, the Grinch is still
I do, yeah.
Kind of got that look going for you. Dan, you're a great lion, and I believe you're cowardly in that photo. I see the fear of God in your eyes. So that's nice.
It is.
There's a hint of sadness in those eyes.
Yeah, it's mostly depression and anxiety. So, that's what you're seeing.
Yeah. Me
Hope just got the look of wonderment, as always. The glint in his eye.
Me being a heartless automaton checks out for sure.
In black and white, nonetheless.
And Hoag looks like a man taking credit for a great many things. You guys ever see the old musical The Wiz from way back in the day?
Many years ago.
Old musical, yes.
It's very old. It's like OG musical.
Yeah.
OG musical.
It's just all of the before Travis times OG.
I mean, yeah, kind of. kind of, yeah.
Oh my god.
The Wiz is plenty of decades removed from Bye Bye Birdie or Showboat or what have you.
Hoag, you look like you wouldn't fit in that dirigible, by the way.
Oh yeah?
Look at that hot air balloon.
I pulled it back down, sorry.
I don't think you're fitting in that. It looks tiny, bro. You're gonna get your head in the flames.
Yeah, it's definitely light them on fire. I like that the flame is right above a leather chair. Is that what that is? Leather and wood chair? Yeah, I don't think that's going to go too well, Hoag.
Hoag, have you ever worn a bow tie?
I want to say I have. Back when I was doing cool activities in college, like debate.
Oh, bow tie for debate. Cool. Okay, yeah. Tucker. That's interesting. I like that.
That was the whole setup, Ains. You can't laugh at that. He was asking if I've ever worn a bow tie just so he could call me Tucker.
Yeah,
no. I was just wondering.
It worked. Oh. All right. So let's get to kind of currently playing and some games. So we'll hold No Rest for the Wicked because that's going to be a broader topic. So I'll start briefly. I talked about this last week, but I did put up my review on Friday for Witchfire, which is the next game from the Astronauts, who are the team who developed the Vanishing of Ethan Carter several years ago, which obviously, is pretty broadly successful for them. They've been working on Witchfire for several years now. It's still in early access on the Epic Games Store only. But it's really, really kind of interesting. In fact, it's been a great week for me for games because this is a first-person shooter that is basically a roguelite while also having a few Souls elements. So you kind of bundle those things together. It's challenging. It's cryptic. It is. It kind of lets you explore and expects you to figure things out on your own. Doesn't really tell you where to go or what to do, which I love. But it's very, very beautiful. It's very smooth. It's very polished already in its early state, and I really, really enjoyed it. I think they've got something special cooking there. So they're a small team. I think about a team of only 12 to 14 people. So it's they're not moving at a rapid pace of development, but what's there is really, really good. And I definitely recommend it. My review is up both on the site and on our channel. You can check it out. It's an early access review. So, I kind of detail more of what the game is trying to do, you know, than really kind of give it a final review. But yeah, I enjoy the hell out of it. I did a stream of it last week too, if you want to see some footage or just watch the review. But if you like that sort of thing, if it sounds intriguing to you, where you like roguelites, you like challenging games and first person shooter mechanics, it's really a lot of fun. So I've been enjoying that one. Can't wait to get back to it.
You have been talking it up behind the scenes.
Yeah, it surprised me. It came out in September initially. Its initial launch was September, but this past week they did the first major update to it, like content edition, where they added a bunch of things, revised a bunch of things, and so it's got 6 classes you choose from to start now. The lore of the game, or the kind of story of the game, is really cool. It's kind of like dark fantasy, based loosely around the 15th century European witch hunts. Sure. And you play a basically the arm of the church going to hunt down the witch in the region. And you're fighting just minions and, you know, all kinds of demonic type things. And it's very, very cool. The art style and kind of the art direction are just phenomenal.
Is it a witch hunt if the witches are real?
I think, yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah,
given the modern usage of witch hunt. Yeah.
Witch hunt means like a hunt that isn't needed, or is kind of like a, you know, it's like, but what if there are witches? What do you call that?
Yeah. You're still hunting them, I guess,
hunt.
but
yeah, it's still a witch hunt, but you would be confusing people by describing it that way.
Yeah.
I went on this witch hunt last weekend. Really? How many witches did you catch? Were they innocent? I don't get it.
Yeah, it's good though. If that interests you at all, check out the review to see some footage and stuff. And I highly recommend it. It's got 6 regions in the game that they're making that are kind of there, but you can only go to 2 of them currently. They've teased the next one. They've teased some end game stuff, but you know, they don't really have a timeline. They basically are taking the mentality of it's done when it's done. So, yeah, but. That's part of my week. The rest of my last few days has been No Rest for the Wicked, which we're saving. So did anyone try Harold Hbit?
Yes.
Okay.
I've tried Harold Hbit. It is not my favorite thing.
Okay. Expound.
Sure. It is an adventure game, and I mean that in the old stripe. It reminds me a little bit of something like The Longest Journey, but where most adventure games try to cover some of the slowness of plot development or story advancement with humor or with cleverness, this one mostly seems to take the tack of being kind of boring British indie, and if I'm being generous, comedy. So it's kind of like a dull Hitchhiker's Guide take on bureaucracy and what science fiction might look like from a indie standpoint. Now, graphically, I think it's pretty impressive. It's got a kind of almost claymation looking style. It's not claymation, but it has that style to it, and I think it's impressive to look at. But the times that I have played it, I have been basically bored out of my mind.
Wow. It was in development a very long time, if I read up on this correctly, right? Like a long time.
I mean, that's coming. What the tweet said 14 years, I think, or something like that. I hadn't heard about it before you made me aware of its existence, Ains.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just, it doesn't work for me. And it might get better at some point. There are certain aspects of it that are clearly highly resourced. They have like little video ads and things that are interesting in the way they do their cutscenes, but it's just not interesting as a story yet. And I think you have to have that kind of inciting incident or drive to find out more. It reminds me a little bit of something like, you might be familiar with an old adventure game series called Broken Sword, where that game series had a lot of clever puzzles and things that I haven't seen yet in Harold Hbit. But it was kind of more on the dull side, just real people doing real things, trying to fight a murderous clown. But I will give it another chance because it has the ingredients to be interesting, but certainly the starting point, the first, I think I've played it for probably 4 or 5 hours now, is not strong.
Okay. Travis, how much time do you have in it?
Maybe like 90 minutes. And I would say I'm kind of on the same place as Hogan. Like, Although, to be honest, most adventure games don't really grab me in the very beginning. And so I think it's one of those things where you just have to kind of like put in your time, learn the mechanics. I will say the voice acting was the thing that kind of pulled me out of it. The voice acting is pretty bad, some of it.
Okay.
And so that's been my kind of big hurdle. But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna give it a chance. I think it's probably just way too early for me to tell right now. I can tell they're going for some goofy stuff, and we'll see. I think it's got potential. I just haven't played enough of it. These games are slow for me.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
adventure games have always been on the slower side of the video game spectrum, and then this is like slow that down by 10 in my experience. I love adventure games, right? Gabriel Knight was some of my favorite stuff back in the day, but no, this one isn't working so far.
Gotcha. So this sounds about the furthest thing from a Dan game possible.
I believe
I've
so.
never even heard of it. Never.
I
even
think I
heard of it.
messaged to you that this was the most indie thing I think I've ever played, and I've played Docs and Freeze. I play all the stuff in Hoag's Notes. This is like specifically trying to be anti-marketable.
Yeah.
It sounds like they were going for some sort of specific theme that they were hoping would hit with a certain audience. I guess I don't really know.
Yeah, it's got like the makings of. I could see it being a good adventure game because it's got a super unique art style. It's got a very weird and unique world that is intentionally silly, and if that pays off, I could see it being like a pretty good adventure game. It's just like I would be willing to bet whoever made this like really likes like OG adventure games from back in the day and was trying to like recreate that. It also reminded me of that point and click adventure game where you play like a worm. What is that game called? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? That's also kind of claymation. You play like a God, what is that game called? I'm gonna look it up while we're here because it kind of reminds me of it.
Okay.
I do not know of a game where I play as a worm, other than worms, but that's just blowing them up.
True.
Yeah, it seemed like this. I wonder because obviously, if you don't know this game, it launched on Game Pass, and
Arma
it feels
Krog
like
is the name. Do you guys know Arma Krog?
So
No.
yeah, Arma Krog is that from like the Neverhood kind of developer, right? The one that was doing the claymation 2D platformer games.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that game a little bit.
It does. It looks a little bit like that, or a Wallace and Gromit.
yeah, that's kind of what I expected.
It's a really cool style to put on what are clearly not claymation. Like it's clearly just a 3D character like you would expect, but it's got a really cool art style. And yeah, it wants to be what I think of it as is a boring Doctor Who, like one of the bad Doctor Who episodes, or like a not very interesting take on a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy type story. It's got the evil corporation. The premise, the world of Harold Hbit is that the people fleeing from Earth in a spaceship had some problems and crashed on a alien planet full of quote unquote water, liquid of some kind, and they basically set up their society there.
Is it trying to be like an Oddworld type game?
I mean, it's not actiony, right? You're just moving from point to point. You're having conversations with people, so there's no interactions that are actiony. You're not getting past traps or anything like that. And then the puzzles themselves are actually really obtuse. Like you have interfaces that don't have words that you can understand, and you have to figure out how to interact with that interface without understanding any of the buttons you're pressing, that kind of thing. But I want to like it, so I've tried it a number of times this weekend. But I'm waiting for the plot to kick in or the interest to happen.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. All right. Yeah, I was curious. I have it installed. I just haven't gotten to it because of the other games. But yeah, that doesn't sound too promising. I'll probably fall off of it pretty quickly if it's as you guys described, which I'm sure it is. So yeah, it doesn't sound interesting.
I agree with Travis that the ingredients are there if it comes together.
Gotcha. All right. What else you been playing? Hit me with something.
Sure. I have been playing a ton of Final Fantasy this week.
Yeah, Rising Tide.
So after our show on Sunday, I was in the final battle for Final Fantasy Rebirth, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Your game of the year?
No. No, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is not the game of the year. And we can certainly talk about the ending in and of itself, but I'm not going to spoil anything. But it's a tire fire. But worse than that, from a game design perspective, it has a 10 boss sequence at the end of this game that doesn't have checkpoints where you would expect, that you have to watch a cutscene over and over and over again if you die, and has a DPS check that is insane at the end of the last boss. I was losing my mind. Alex can show you the texts I was exchanging with him, Alex, the reviewer for SG on Rebirth, while I fought this boss and got all the way there and died to this DPS check maybe 12 or 14 times. He'll tell you I was playing this sequence because I didn't want to go back to the beginning of the boss run, and I couldn't save for 6 hours. I left my PlayStation on when I went to dinner, that kind of thing, you know?
Oh, it's like an old school thing. Okay.
And I hated it so much. Like, a DPS check in and of itself is bad design. I think you should be building up your challenges so that you don't need to check me like that. And for folks that don't know, who don't play games or who otherwise don't know what the heck I'm talking about, DPS is damage per second, and a DPS check is essentially a place where you automatically lose if you can't do enough damage over whatever window the developers have set. And to put that at the very last stage of the last boss of the game, when you don't know it, when you don't know it's coming, and that you have to basically save up your special moves for that particular instance, is crazy balls. It is a stupid design, and it was only matched by the Final Fantasy series, again, having a DPS check in their final boss of the DLC that they released this week. So I had a great week with Final Fantasy, playing DPS checks against final bosses. But Rebirth is a game that I admire more than I enjoy. And I will talk about that in a more spoiler-filled setting at some point in the future, I promise. But there's a lot of fun to be had there. It is not a terribly strong game sitting on its own.
I wish we could have convinced Dan to play this game all the way to the end, because the rant that would have ensued from getting to a DPS check at the end of a 100-hour game would have been epic.
I don't know, because Dan plays games differently. He would have played 300 hours by that point and probably would have been a cakewalk. And also, he loves Yakuza, which is also a game filled with mini games. So it could end up hitting. You never know.
It could. Yakuza is much, much better at it than Rebirth. I think, actually, if you are familiar with what Infinite Wealth did, Rebirth is more obviously wrong-headed in the way it was designed. But I'm not sure how much crossover there was between players that played Infinite Wealth and Rebirth, because there's 200-hour games that came out within like 4 weeks of each other, 5 weeks, something like that. So
so what do you have to do then? So say you get to that point and you're not doing enough damage. Is it one of those typical where you just have to go out and grind?
No, you're at I'm at max level for this fight. The way that the remake Rebirth system works is, as you take damage or do damage, you get things called limit breaks, which are really strong attacks. Yep. And you also have your ATB bar, which allows you to do your spells or other large attacks, not as large as a limit break. So basically what you have to do is know the DPS is coming. So you have to die once for the most part, unless you're really lucky. You have to know the DPS is coming, and then you have to deliberately not use any of your moves for the section immediately before the DPS check. And then you have to just hurl your body at this boss who's shielded, essentially, and also trying to damage you at the same time, and hope that you get that last little bit of damage down below the marker, or else it's an instant death for you, regardless of what you've done for the rest of the 10 boss rush. And it is crazy.
That sounds stupid.
It is the stupidest thing, right? Because a DPS check in design, they're not all bad, right? Crazy DPS is crazy, but you can have this as a part of your design. It's bad design, it's clunky design, but to check that a player is far enough along to not be absolutely frustrated by whatever's coming next, right? But to have it as the last bit of the last boss is insane.
So just see if you're worthy of playing part 3, bro.
Yeah, see if you're. It's like a worthiness check. It's like trying to pick up Thor's hammer. And when you die to the 15th time and they don't put the checkpoint after the cutscene, and you have to watch these lines of dialogue for the 20th time, you're about to lose your mind. And I enjoyed this game, not as much as some people online, but I enjoyed this game. And my overall lasting feeling having ended it is that it's garbage, right? And that's not fair. It's not garbage. But if you do this and you have to sit there for 7 hours trying to beat this tiny little bit of a fight that is at the end of its own 20-minute boss fight, you lose your mind a little bit.
Well, I think that's something to be said for a game design, in the sense of there can be points, even in long games, or maybe even especially in long games, where a single kind of poor decision can ruin the experience for people, right? And this sounds very typical of that for you, because you already had some problems with this game in terms of plot and pacing and other things. But to then push through all that and then get to a point where the game pisses you off even more with something that sounds really poorly designed. And
I'm not going to spoil Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but I will say that they absolutely butchered the resonance of the only thing that they could not butcher in the plot line of what they were putting out there for this game. So that's after that fight, right? That's what I earned after however many hours I was fighting this guy. And so I don't know what to tell you. I will comment on this again in a more spoiler-filled capacity at some point later on in the future, but I'm not going to spoil anything for anybody because I know a lot of people are playing it right now.
Of course. Yeah, Chris Jetzer says, Hogue, I finished that boss a week ago or so, and I refused to beat it because of that fight. I decided to watch a YouTube video on the ending instead, so that's fine.
I almost did because I was that upset. And I am hopeful that they correct course for the last game, but I am not optimistic about that.
I hope that the sequel is called Final Fantasy VII DPS check. And that's the whole game. Every fight is a DPS check. So
they're just bad design, man. They're just bad design. They feel bad. They're
not necessarily bad design. I'll push back on that.
They're not necessarily bad design. In these instances, they are bad design. The last thing you fight in this content is bad.
A DPS check as the final thing you do is odd because typically they're like a separator between acts where it's like, all right, you're going to do a final assault on the fortress and it's going to be really hard. So we need to make sure the player can do enough damage to actually compete. But it is very rare to make a arbitrary DPS check just to finish the game. That is very bizarre. You'd think it would be at the first of those 10 boss fights. So that they're kind of like telling the player, don't even attempt this. And
give you a path to work your way back to it.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think they can be good. I also like DPS checks in like raids, where it's all about you and your team improving
being
your
strong
cohesion
enough,
and being strong enough and all that stuff. But I think it can be good. But yeah, it sounds like this is a very poor implementation. Unfortunately,
that's it. It's always execution and implementation, right?
Totally.
Yeah, and then as for Final Fantasy 16,
they don't have it in MLB, dude.
Yeah, I guess not, man.
They do. They just have you go against all-star pitchers and try to hit them.
You may not have heard the term, but I guarantee you've played a game that had one. Like you've done a DPS check, even if you didn't know you were doing it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure I have.
You're up the bat with a wiffle ball plastic bat, in MLB. That's it.
I mean, I don't understand. So
yeah, and Alex in the chat here, because he was exchanging texts with me, and then finally got so empathetic towards me losing my mind that said, all right, I'm gonna do the last boss run so I can give you some strategies if I can go beat him and then tell you. And one, that was very nice of him. Two, I was a little bit frightened that he was gonna go flying past me and get to the ending and then laugh at me on my text chain. But he actually went and got to the same part I was at, and it's like, no, they changed it. They changed it in the patch. It's much harder than it was when I beat the game. So don't know if there's something wrong with the way that it currently ends. Could be something that gets fixed up. Don't know. But certainly as I experienced it, it was unfun. And then Final Fantasy 16 had its big DLC release. So if you don't know Final Fantasy 16, there's icons that are the old summons from Final Fantasy. And one was mentioned in the story that was not to be found in the world called Leviathan. And they were clearly setting up for DLC. That DLC came out this week called The Rising Tide. And it is an excellent DLC. Final Fantasy 16 continues to be an excellent game. That DLC is excellent. It has a brand new area of the world and a brand new town that is tremendously well built with little stories that talk about all the things that you're interested in the overall scope of Final Fantasy 16. And it, of course, has Leviathan. So it's an excellent DLC that only again broke my spirit right at the end when it has a random DPS check. Again, in a situation at the last boss where you don't control what your gear is, you don't control what your setup is. It's all set up by the game, and then they just have the window is so small that you can't miss by more than a quarter second in any specific time that you're hitting your supers. But I finally did beat that and was happy to do so. But it's a great DLC with a really, really bad design choice.
So when you said Leviathan, so like, I think since like Final Fantasy, well, I don't even know what number, you'd know better than me, but Leviathan's kind of a standard, right? Like it's one of those iconic Final Fantasy type summons. So it wasn't even in the core game.
They're all iconic in 16. Yeah, you're collecting Ifrit and Phoenix and Garuda and Titan and Shiva.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm surprised Leviathan was saved for DLC.
Bahamut, Odin.
Yeah.
And Leviathan. Yeah. So yeah, he was the DLC. He was Leviathan the Lost in the main story. And you get a little reason why he was lost, and you get a little reason why this is separated from the main game. And the reason in our world is that Square wanted to have a DLC to sell you later. But the reason in game is given, and they actually spend the time explaining why that would be. And it's fantastic. It's a really good DLC. For if you liked 16, it's more 16. I highly recommend it. I'm sorry, Travis.
Did you help him find what he was looking for? Help him get home? Or lost Leviathan.
There's a lot that goes on in the plot of Leviathan the Lost, of the Rising Tide, and I might have helped Leviathan do some things. Yes.
Did you bring him to the information center so that they could call out in the PA?
Actually, all he needed to do was unplug his internet and plug it back in.
We found a Leviathan. If you lost your Leviathan, please come to the information desk.
Now I'm picturing Alex running up to the desk. Me. So someone asked how long it is. Sid says 6 to 8 hours. Is that about right, Hogue, for the DLC?
It was. I didn't time it or anything. It was 3 sessions for me, fairly substantial. So it's. Yeah, I would say 9 hours for me about.
Okay, cool.
I always time my sessions. You gotta get that stopwatch going.
Stopwatch. All right.
Always.
Alex has reviewed Rising Tide. He reviewed 16. He reviewed Rebirth. He's doing all of our Final Fantasy reviews. So our Rising Tide review actually goes up today. So Alex says 5 to 7 hours up to 10 with Kairos Gate. Whatever the hell that is.
Which I don't have access to, and we don't know why. We think it's because I didn't beat the earlier DLC.
Rookie
casual.
mistake.
The other DLC.
I knew you.
Dude, is this your first Final Fantasy or what? What are we doing?
Not a casual. I was playing Final Fantasy 16 with my daughter, and I was waiting to let her have a time where she wanted to play.
He's blaming the daughter.
The DLC.
Blaming the daughter.
I'm not blaming the daughter. I'm explaining why I hadn't played the December DLC yet.
Oh, that's cool though. At least Rising.
So bad.
At least Rising Tide sounds really good. So, and
I have no idea what score Alex gave it. I don't have any idea, but I really liked it.
Probably too high.
He's pretty high on it.
He's a little simp, that guy.
Yeah, he's definitely a Final Fantasy simp. That's for sure.
God, dude.
We love it.
It's like, okay, fan.
He likes Final Fantasy. You know what? Your reviewers, at least Alex, are very reasonable people because he saw me tearing my hair out at Final Fantasy, and I was telling him how the score was changing as I was going through this. And he's like, no, it's good to have reasonable disagreement on these things. And he was very good, even behind the scenes. So I have nothing but respect for Alex, and I have no problem with anybody giving Rebirth a high score. It just doesn't work in the ways that I wanted it to work.
Fair
okay,
enough.
But can I make you disrespect Alex by telling you he gave Skull and Bones a 6?
No, I think Skull and Bones, anywhere between 6 and 8, I think is a perfectly reasonable score for Skull and Bones.
All right.
The fact that I have played it for 80 hours is notwithstanding.
I will continue having something other than respect for Alex, but not for that reason. Just unrelated things.
Oh man. So let me get a couple of these things real quick here. Catch up on some things. Sorry. Shoosh, gifting a membership on the Hogue Law side of the house. Thank you very much, Shoosh. Appreciate you. Good to see you.
Nintendo Shoosh.
Midnight Jury gifted an SG membership. Thank you very much, Jury. Always so generous every show we do. Gifted a membership. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. I want to shout out my friend AKW. He's been off work 14 weeks with a new little baby girl, 7 weeks old. Congrats, brother.
Why have you been off work
to
for
you and
14 weeks if she's 7 weeks old? That's my follow-up question.
Because he's in a country where they give, fathers time off with their children.
7 weeks before, though?
What? No, he's probably saying she's 7 weeks old. He's getting 14
Oh, I
weeks
see.
off.
I see. I thought I was like, he's off 7 weeks
Just
before.
halfway through.
That's crazy, bro.
I don't know, Travis. When your wife is third trimester, we'll see if you need a break from work.
That's not gonna happen.
You
bro.
wait till you have your kids, Travis.
Oh, stop it, you breeders. You breeders, one and all.
AKW, congrats, man. Sid's in the house, man. Hey guys, been a while. Was busy with work. Good to see you, Sid. Hope you're doing well. Good to see you back hanging out with us. And Eleanor Sindra with the member comment. Dan, you got this. You can take this one.
Oh, sure. Eleanor, shout out to my heroes of the week, Ains and Travis, for helping me with my uni project. Since I landed on Cyberpunk 2077, special thanks to the Tie Guy.
Nice.
Very nice.
Happy we could help. Good stuff.
Yep. Nice.
All right. So we've covered Final Fantasy. We got Harold Hbit. We got Witchfire. What else we got?
Another Crab's Treasure.
Can you finally talk about it?
Are you allowed to say that name?
I'm allowed to say that I reviewed Another Crab's Treasure and that my review will be going live on Tuesday.
Okay. Is that it?
And that is all I can say. But
Okay.
if you have an interest in Souls-likes where you play a hermit crab under the ocean, you should definitely look at my review on Tuesday.
Don't you guys ever get sick of Souls games?
God,
Rest
no
of the
shit.
wickedest Souls.
Like every single thing we've talked about is like, oh, this is like a underground Souls-like, and this is everything.
Dark
Pretty
Souls
popular
has inspired.
format.
Yeah, it has inspired a lot of games.
I will say this, though.
I cannot wait for the Souls expansion to MLB The Show.
Yes, that's what I'm waiting for.
You know, it's not necessarily true that they're all Souls-likes. We also have a ton of roguelites.
No, I mean
and
today
roguelike.
we've literally
That's
talked
like
about
a
like 5
thing.
of them in a row.
We have a lot
What
of.
are you talking about? We talked about Harold Hbit and Final Fantasy.
No,
both Souls-likes.
What are we talking? What are you talking
I thought
about?
Witchfire was a Souls-like.
I said it's a roguelite with a couple Souls elements.
Yeah, good enough. That's all I need.
He heard the word Souls, he checked out.
I know.
I mean,
He
literally,
started
I haven't
drafting
heard
his
anything
rank.
for the last 30 minutes. I have no idea what's happening right now.
He's like the opposite of the devil. When he hears souls, he stops caring.
It's gone.
I think the other problem too, as we've joked on this show, is that word is just thrown around way too often now.
It's true. Actually, a lot of people have been saying Souls-like for No Rest for the Wicked, which I will not be using that word in my review because I do not think it has really anything in common with that series.
I assumed from
it.
what I saw of it, and I have not played this game because I don't generally play early access games, that the Souls moniker was being given to the technical combat and not the kind of concept of dying and getting your souls and that kind of thing.
I just don't think the technical combat is unique to Souls-likes.
Agreed. Yeah. It's become the most common way to describe something, that kind of has that type of combat. But
I get that it is useful to describe that to people because it immediately gives people a sense of what the combat's going to be like. But I just don't think in this case, I think it's so overused at this point, it would behoove all of us to use it only when it's necessary, like when a game is literally a Souls-like and is being self-described as such, or that sort of thing.
Yeah, that way Dan can make sure he avoids it.
I can say Another Crab's Treasure is a Souls-like, straight up, describes itself as a Soul-like, plays like one, has all of the mechanics you would expect. The difference is every Souls-like I have played that I can think of has the same Souls-like aesthetic. It feels like dark and grim and edgelordian, and Another Crab's Treasure is like explicitly does the exact opposite. Just says, no, we're going to be super colorful with cool music, lighthearted music playing, and you're going to be a hermit crab with lovable characters and a cute story, and that's going to be the Souls-like. It's just a very weird combination of things. But I've never seen that, so
he's not allowed to talk about it. He's already right on the edge, James.
Yeah, I can only tell you about things I've seen in the trailer on Steam at this point. But I can tell you that, like, if you look at the game, you immediately go, I've never seen a Souls-like that looks like this or has that tone. And so that's kind of its unique pitch, I think.
Well, and I've talked about it in this space, but to me, Souls moniker is specifically for that loop where you really have to press forward to get to the next safe spot, and it's designed to kill you and potentially lose in a risk-reward scenario your advancement if you don't get back to your body, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so
that's
No
what
Rest
makes
for the
Souls
Wicked
fun to me.
has like one of those things that you said out of the 5 you listed, and so I just
True.
don't think it counts. Yeah,
True. Another Crab's Treasure, by the way, does launch on Game Pass.
Yes,
it
it
is
does.
out this week. I don't know what day it's out this week, but I know it's out this week because I'm looking
if
forward
my
to it.
review is Tuesday, it's either Tuesday
Probably
or
Wednesday or
Friday.
Thursday.
As is Harold Halibut, if we interested you in our discussion of that at all. That is on Game Pass right now.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Yes. Okay. Sweet. I'm super excited to play that. Especially you describing it as they're going for Souls like while being very lighthearted at the same time. That sounds really interesting to me. So
Yeah, it's a
I'll be
Souls
checking it out.
like with a vibe that is very unique, and I'll be able to talk about it at our next show. If
Okay.
I even remember, I reviewed this game like 3 weeks ago, so we'll see how long I hold that in my brain.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a good one.
Cool. Before we get to No Rest for the Wicked, because we're probably going to talk a little bit about that. What else we want to talk about game wise?
Yeah, I've got a couple. I mentioned it last week. I'm back into Remnant 2, and I'm very
Yes.
upset that nobody on this panel ever told me how good this game was.
I'm telling you.
I wish I had known how enjoyable Remnant 2 is as a game. But nobody ever
I tried
said
to get
anything about
Travis
it.
to play it, and he just kept ignoring me.
Nobody ever said anything about it.
Just
No,
lose my mind.
I said this last week, but I think that the starter planet I got the first time was the wrong one. I think it's a bad idea for a starter planet or world, I think, in the Remnant 2 space. But I'm still not very good at it. I'm not. It is more challenging than I would like for my personal proclivities. But it's got a lot of cool bits and pieces. It's got a lot of cool bits of lore. And I'm looking forward to playing it more, especially now with one DLC uploaded into the game and one coming out, I think, next week.
Yes.
This week?
Yeah, very soon. Yeah.
I can say I've played that too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the new expansion is coming soon. It takes place in Yesha. It's got some new content. If you played The Awakened King, which was an expansion on Lassam last year, it's very similar, except for this one comes with 12,000 words worth of patch notes because they're changing and rebalancing a whole bunch of stuff in that game. And so, like, it's one of those games where it's not live service, but they are really, really like putting in the time and energy to optimize and make it better in as many ways as they can. And then the new expansion also features a new archetype where you become a warrior who can control water, and you use a bunch of aquatic attacks and stuff. So I played
all my
it early.
DLCs have water bending. This
Yeah, it's the new hot thing. But I played it early, but we are not doing a preview for this one just because Remnant 2 hasn't been performing super well, and it takes a lot of time to put together a review. But I can continue to recommend Remnant 2 and tell you that both of the expansions are pretty good, albeit a little bit brief. So
it's a solid game, and I am enjoying it. It's still a little much for me and my hand or my skill level. Don't know.
That is fair, and also that game is like very clearly designed for co-op. So if you're playing it solo, it does have like an extra veneer of difficulty, I would say, if you're just playing it solo.
It does. Yeah. Yeah, it can be challenging for sure. Really good game. In fact, not to take a circle back, but Witchfire, I would say, is most like if I had to compare Witchfire to a game, it would be Remnant 2. That's what it's most like. It's first person shooter, but it kind of plays like that. It has that feel and look and vibe and kind of aesthetic to it. So yeah, I think
well, good. I've been enjoying that. You mentioned as part of the start of this conversation that I have been playing Suicide Squad quite a bit.
Hell yeah.
I really like the moment-to-moment gameplay in this game, actually doing the activities, shooting the bad guys, jumping around the city. I do think it lacks a kind of funnel of what you're doing these things for. Like, I'm not the guy that just gets the battle pass up to the highest level or gets into the end game just to see how high the numbers can go. I tend to need some kind of light story bits or something along those lines pushing me forward. And this game, I earned the Joker. I got to level 35 in the I guess it's the episode rank for this, and got the Joker from Brainiac. And I'm super happy to have a new character to be bouncing around with. He's really interesting. But at that point, there isn't a lot driving you to use him, right? There isn't a lot driving you forward to play the game other than to get him to max level and to get some cool loot. And so I do think they need like one more loop of direction added to the game. And I'm not sure it's going to get it or not. I suspect it won't. But for me, I like playing it, but it's just kind of playing it for its own ends and not to do anything within that world or to advance any kind of plot or story or for any reason other than to make power go up.
Yeah. It's you kind of got to the place that we were talking about a few weeks ago where I said, you beat the main game, you get to the end game loop, and it's really fun to play. Like, that's what I love about that game. It's just fun to play. And the action is really well polished, and I love the loot system, and there's a lot of building you can do. Those are the aspects I love. But complete agreement where it falls short is just the strength of the activities to actually go do. You end up doing the same thing an awful lot. And I hope that in, future seasons here, they kind of expand the PvE activities, give us new missions, that type of thing. Hopefully it becomes more interesting. But yeah, I'm glad to see you got that far though. And Joker is very, very cool. I think they did a really good job with him. So
yeah, I mean, it's wild how many different ways they can figure out how to traverse the city.
Yeah.
Joker has his umbrella and then a rocket that fires you up higher into the air, and then you can kind of slide on it as like Link's shield slide from the Breath of the Wild series. And that's very different than the other four, and all those four are different from each other. So there's a lot of fun there. There's a lot of gameplay to be had in Suicide Squad, but it is just kind of playing a PvE arena shooter, and however long that interests you. So it'll be kind of an hors d'oeuvre type game for me, I think, for a while. But I wish it had a little bit more.
Yep, me too. Cool. Was that everything you wanted to touch on?
Well, I did have one Hogs note because there is a game that my kids are absolutely obsessed with that was part of I think it was part of the Indie World Showcase. There were a couple of showcases this week.
Yes, there were.
That I did want to mention. I can't necessarily recommend this just to the average gamer because I don't think it has what we would traditionally consider game design. But it's a game called Sticky Business. And it's a game where you take pixel art and you make quote unquote stickers out of it and run a sticker business by responding to people's orders and messages and making those stickers available with different packing material and on different sheets of paper. And my daughter, who's a creative, who made Gaming Dino over my shoulder here, is just absolutely obsessed with making stickers and building a business and getting likes, little hearts, people liking their sales, buying new sticker stuff. And it is a game that is just really, really enjoyable. It's not very expensive. And my daughters love it. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, I highly recommend it. It's well made. It's streamlined. I always worry about creative games like that it's going to be essentially have too much depth to have a game made out of it, because it's not that fun to move pixels around and to actually perform the job of doing that art. So this one is, I think, well designed in the between area of having a lot of creativity, but having it based on things that you have to purchase, shapes and colors and things, in a way that makes the game actually work as a game.
On the Switch?
We're playing it on the Switch. It would not surprise me if it's on the PC and potentially even mobile.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Eric asked if it has a demo. Do you know?
I don't know. If it does, we're playing it on the Switch. The demo button would be right next to the purchase button, but I don't know.
Okay. All right. Cool. Well, I mean, we've got a lot of family people who watch. So
Sticky Business is the name.
There you go.
And I can tell you it's a huge hit at Hogue House.
Sweet. Yeah, I wanted to quickly touch on Fallout, of course. I know we talked about it last week, but Fallout continuing to see a resurgence from the show. Both Fallout 4 and 76. Well, actually, all the games are really seeing kind of a resurgence, but in particular, Fallout 4 and Fallout 76 are seeing record player counts, which is really, really cool to see. I mentioned last week I was playing Fallout 76 before No Rest for the Wicked took over my life. and I finished my Witchfire review. I was still digging Fallout 76, really getting into it. I think I got to level 13, 14 now, something like that. So still relatively early in the scope of that game. But really, really enjoying it. It starts to expand. The world is mammoth. And, if you just like to kind of run around and explore, it's a lot of fun. Dan, I know you had some questions around like not questions, but concerns about like the PvP aspect. So what I did find, just because I know I wondered the same thing when I got back into it. Basically what happens is there's no PvP prior to level 5. And then once you get to level 5, it gives you a setting. It defaults to no PvP, but it gives you a setting you can turn on if you want to where there's 3 different settings. There's no PvP. There is shoot back PvP, meaning like you can shoot someone, and then if they shoot you back, it's then on, it turns on. And then there is full just open world, play and survive type thing. So I've left it on no PvP. I'm just not, that doesn't vibe with me for that game. I just want to kind of play it like a single player game mostly. So I do see people running around the world once in a while. It's not super common. And they actually show you on the map where real people are too. So it's not like they can surprise you, like you see them coming. But every time I've seen someone, we just kind of like emote, like give a thumbs up, and then we just be on our way. Nothing bad's ever happened. And in fact, one time they helped me kill a legendary enemy, just came in and started shooting and helping me. So it's been a lot of fun. It definitely got that Fallout vibe and, the music and the loot and the monsters and just exploring. So it's been a lot of fun. Very fun. So I'd recommend.
Yeah, I'm glad, Ains. For me, it was one of those that was interesting because I saw the articles go up early in the week that said 7,500% increase in Fallout 4 purchases. And I made an off-the-cuff tweet, which is always the way these stories start, right? That was essentially, sorry, folks, you picked the wrong one. And I had no idea there were so many Fallout 4 backers out there that would take this as a massive offense. I'm not saying Fallout 4 is a bad game. I'm saying it is the worst of the Bethesda modern Fallouts. And in that, I'm saying that it doesn't have the RPG elements of the earlier Fallouts. It doesn't really build the world like the earlier Fallouts. And to those that say, well, it's more accessible and it has better gunplay, it has better gunplay than the Bethesda Fallouts, but that doesn't make the gunplay good. So Fallout 4 to me is the game that you get into if you're watching the Amazon series and you say, I actually don't like this that much because there's not a lot to really grab you in that game, in my opinion, of course. But I think it's the worst entry point for people to bring into the Fallout universe because there isn't a lot of that flavor. It's more of a Far Cry skin as a Fallout game. And so I'm glad that you've been enjoying 76, Ains. I think 76 is a little bit like Fallout 4 in that way, but I think because it was designed to be a multiplayer game, it has more stuff that's interesting to explore and to find than in Fallout 4. So to some extent, I think 76 is a better choice than 4, but it's got more complications in it. So I do understand folks saying casuals will like 4 more. I just don't understand why, if you like Fallout as a series, you want them to play the game that has, in my opinion, the highest likelihood of them bouncing off the brand.
Why are you laughing, Travis?
It's just a hell of a bounce off from how's Fallout 76 doing? Let me talk about how much I think Fallout 4 is overrated for 10 minutes. No, Fallout 4 is not that bad. I tend to agree it's the weaker of the ones, but I think the RPG mechanics are fine. I think the world is fine. My issues are mostly with like the story not really going anywhere and the quest design being a little obtuse, especially where and I know a lot of people don't like the building. I hate
the building.
I didn't mind the building. It is a little janky, but I didn't mind it. Yeah. So May is a light month for reviews. I don't know if you guys know this, but there's not a lot of games coming out in May.
Good.
You guys know this?
I need to catch up.
So what we're doing at IGN is we're toying with the idea of using the month to re-review old games that people are still playing, like Fortnite. And because sure. Fortnite didn't get a review, I think we re-reviewed Fortnite a couple years ago, but it's a very different game now. And one of the games we are thinking about reviewing is Fallout 76.
Skull and
which-
Bones, second review. Same
No,
year. Come on, let's do it, Travis.
No, I will kill myself if you make me play more Skull and Bones, Hogue. So Fallout 76 is one of them. I originally reviewed Fallout 76. I gave it a 4 out of 10. My title was Worst Virginia, which I think
Does sound
was,
like
Pretty good. Pretty good.
accurate. I think it was accurate at the time. I mean, that game was a mess when it came out.
It was a
Buggy,
disaster at launch.
didn't have
Yeah.
NPCs. It was really a weird game. However, I have not played Fallout 76 since. I think maybe I played like a couple hours 3 years ago or whatever. It was I've been out of it for a long time. But I probably will be getting back into it. My fiance just started Fallout 3 last night. She found out that Liam Neeson is her father, and she's overjoyed. And
Fallout
so,
3's beginning, if you don't remember it, is amazing. I mean, you're
weird.
born at the top of that game.
It is weird. You do come out of your mom and then immediately decide what you're going to look like and what your skill set is going to be. It's very bizarre.
That's what I did.
Yeah. Also,
I
didn't know that
choose very wisely.
I didn't know that
Yeah.
Liam Neeson's
I
character-
respect like 5 times.
his face changes based on who you choose, right?
I have no
wouldn't
idea.
doubt it.
Yeah.
I have
so
no
like,
idea. It's been 15 years since I played that
So
game.
my fiance was like, I'm gonna make myself Asian. And then when she met her dad, I was like, is Liam Neeson Asian now? Like you kind of changed. Did you impact the way he looks? Like that's crazy. So I didn't know that was a thing. But yeah, so she's playing that, and I will probably start playing Fallout 76 today.
Play on PC.
Why?
There's no crossplay. So just awareness for anyone playing 76. There's no crossplay or cross progression. So whatever platform you play on, you're sticking to it.
Well, I
'Cause-
reviewed the game on the Xbox, so I kind of feel like I have to pick.
Travis, you really have to pick
between.
between us because I'm playing 76 on the Xbox right now.
Oh,
son
this
of
is
a-
a friend. Well, Ains got invited to my wedding, so you get invited to Fallout 76. That's the trade-off.
He gets the wedding, you get the wasteland. All right, that's an interesting.
So yeah, I will be replaying that. That sucks that there's no crossplay. Already off to a bad start in my review. But yeah, we'll see what games we review. I think another one we're thinking about doing is Disney Dreamlight Valley because we missed the 1.0 for that game. We only reviewed the early access version, so it'd be nice to revisit that.
We probably talked about that more here.
Yeah, weirdly. Well, that's because they almost made me review it at the beginning of the year, and then we got busy with Pal World. Surprisingly, nobody expected that to be huge. But it should be an interesting month because we're going to have a bunch of like old games that people are still playing and thinking about that we re-review, which is always fun to do, and we never find time for. So that should be fun.
That's cool. That's very cool.
I do have to object to the notion that there isn't stuff coming up really soon because isn't Aiden Chronicles like momentarily? Is everybody not counting the days to Aiden Chronicles?
No,
I think isn't it out or like this week? I think it's like now.
Yeah,
I didn't
You're
look
not
at the
counting
release
days
date.
to 100 Heroes, Travis.
I am not.
Is that in May?
I think it's at the end of April. I think it's like the 28th or something.
That's not May, Hogue. If it's April, we already reviewed it.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's April, like if it comes out in April, someone is either playing it right now or just finished playing it. So I'm talking about like
people in
May.
chat saying
It
Aiden
releases
Chronicles reviews
Tuesday.
went up during this stream.
Yeah, reviews are up, so it comes out Tuesday.
There you go. Yeah,
But there's
So it's
early
like-
access, says Alex.
All right, hold on, because you jumped a game before I even finished talking about 76. I wanted to ask Dan because Dan was playing 76 this week,
Oh, damn. Cool.
but
Yeah,
you
Dan.
weren't enjoying it. I don't think.
No. I was. Listen, here's the thing. I said it was like the most. There's so much to do, and it feels super empty. I'm not a huge fan of the setting. I don't know. It feels like you're just in a forest most of the time. Where I'm at, it's the very beginning.
Well, yeah, I was ggoing to say you
skip or
start
something.
in a forest, but
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Like there's just it's like if you play it like me, you play it single player. You're not really worried about everybody else. I paid the $6 for the Fallout first month or whatever it is.
yeah,
You get your own private thing. I just went into there. I got like a level 20 skip, I guess. I don't even know how that happened. But I started at level 20 out of the vault.
you're already higher than me.
Well, I mean, it just gave me the option. I was like, why would I not take level 20? That's dumb.
Some people like the growth curve, Dan.
Yeah, I'm not one of them. It doesn't really matter because I mean everything is leveled to your, it's all scaled. So that was kind of pointless. I don't know, man. It's just it doesn't feel like a single player Fallout game that I'm used to, like 3 or New Vegas or something. Of course it's not.
Yeah.
But it's still, so yeah. I'm just one of those, that's how I feel about 76. But
yeah, it depends on what you want out of your Fallout game. Because I think you would prefer more of like the New Vegas style where it's really kind of story driven and narrative driven and has, some stuff. Whereas Fallout 76 is much more for
I'd rather play 4 than 76 any day of the week. It's not even close.
Well, I was gonna
happening in 4.
Well, how many hours did you put into 76?
I am at maybe 10 at this point.
Okay. Because it does start slow. That's the one thing I told people. And I bounced off of 76 multiple times already. This is the first time it's stuck. Like the first 3 to 5 hours, and I know that's this statement we always hate to say, are pretty slow and boring. But it started to, again, it's not a great story-driven game. That's not what I'm saying. But it does have a massive world to kind of explore and do your own thing in, which is what I enjoy about it.
It does the little Fallout story thing pretty well, I think. Going into a building and finding stuff.
Yeah, that loop. That's what I mean. Yeah, that kind of loop. And not knowing what's around the corner. And there's, it's, yeah.
Yeah, just for reference, I'm pretty sure the last time I played Fallout 76, there were no NPCs in it.
There weren't originally.
That was where Fallout 76, I think, really saved itself, was adding characters.
Weird thing to miss in your 1.0. No characters.
Well, it's the ambitious plan. If you listen to like the early days of them selling 76, was that you'd only be interacting with other real people.
Yeah.
And I think that's a mistake because I know other real people, but that was the plan.
Yeah. I got what they were going for immediately. And also the review server for this was so funny. It was like 8 people walking around and it was lifeless. I think I probably saw like 2 people the entire time I reviewed that game. It's crazy.
I mean, the world, like, I can't stress how big the world is. I think I said last week, like, I have the map on my wall, like, because I have a whole bunch of game maps and, like, whatever I'm in, 15 hours in, I've seen maybe like 3% of the world map. And they're expanding it, by the way.
I like the idea that that's Ains's version of like a pinup. Like some would have a beautiful woman, but he's like, no, look at that map, baby. I can look at this baby for miles. So much free area to roam.
Who cares about a beautiful woman pinup? What a waste of time. This is functional,
He's just got Vados.
I'm gonna explore you so good.
I'm gonna explore you so well.
Every inch of you is gonna get marked off my map.
All right.
All right. We're going back to our pre-live conversation here at this point. What was I going to say? They're expanding it too. So the test server just went live for Fallout 76 with a new region. So I think it's like they're expanding the map too. Skylight Valley, is that what it's called? The next expansion? I forget. But
yeah, there's a new one coming out.
I don't know. I tend to like ESO more than Fallout 76, but they clearly have certain similar design sensibilities.
Yes, they definitely are similar. Yeah, I guess it just depends what you prefer. But
yeah, I mean, obviously ESO is the better game. Or is a much better game than it was when it came out. But I just haven't played 76 since my review, so I'm actually super excited to just jump in and experience all that I missed for all those years. It's probably going to take forever. This is going to be a hell of a longer.
I think there's a lot in the area.
Yeah, there's a lot. It's funny. So in the world, you can see the other real players, like I said, on the map, and it shows you where they are. And the cool thing is, if they set up their camp, some people really get into the camp. So kind of like Fallout 4, where you build it. Yep. So their camp will be there, and you can go to it. So you can go to other people's camps and just walk into their house, and they have vending machines, and you can buy stuff from them and stuff like that, which is cool.
That was there when I reviewed it too, but it was basically the only thing there. It was sort of like, hey, here's a big empty world for you to like fill with habitation and settlements, and there was some of that, but yeah, it was just very bare bones. Like the weirdest thing to me with that was like the story was like you always just missed seeing someone. Like you go to a computer and be like, I was just here, and you're like, this is gonna be one of those games where I don't meet anybody. Like it's just such a weird thing. Alex, I'll be your partner. Play on Xbox, buddy.
What was I gonna say? You took me on my train of thought.
Sorry, you were talking about settlements and how it's fun to encounter them.
Oh yeah. So I was playing. I just hit level 12 or whatever it was, and there was a guy in my server the other day, and I looked. He was at level 1176. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Like, how many hours do you have in that game, man?
Sounds about right, dude. Yeah, I mean, it had a really tightly knit community, which is interesting to see that community now get like infused with like tons of players because of a TV show of all things.
Yeah.
So huge. Huge deal.
One of the cool things they do at every like main kind of like story point or various places throughout the map, there's actually a community chest too. So people will just throw a bunch of stuff in their guns and ammo and stuff, and you can just go in, take what you want, and yeah, it's cool. It's been pretty cool. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys know this, but around the same time the show came out, there was also a Magic the Gathering crossover with Fallout where they got a bunch of Fallout themed decks that came out right around that time. Dan, there's actually a Fallout New Vegas themed one too.
Very sought after, aren't they?
You can play as Kaiser. I don't think so. They're pretty easy to get. I got all four of them. If they are sought after, apparently I'm sitting on some pretty cool product. But yeah, they're I think that's also part of the reason there's so much talk about Fallout in current nerd cultures. They got this Magic the Gathering set, which just by complete coincidence came out around the same time as the show. So there's just so much like Fallout out in the world today, except for games. There's no new games.
Yeah, I was talking about that on XEP yesterday with the guys, and we were kind of talking about like just, we've talked on this show a lot around what Xbox is doing now that they have all these developers and talent and IPs and everything under their banner, right? And we know that Elder Scrolls 6, like Todd Howard has said, Elder Scrolls 6 is in development. It's next for Bethesda Softworks, which typically, right, outside of New Vegas would mean that Fallout's coming after that. But I don't think you can wait another decade to make another Fallout game. Like it feels like they need to create a team with their new talent to be working on a Fallout game.
You do have Obsidian in the family.
That's what I was going to say, especially when you own Obsidian. I feel like I know Obsidian's already working on a bunch of other projects, but I feel like a follow-up to New Vegas or some sort of just other follow-up game made by that team.
Or a dream team, just pull a bunch of resources together, that have kind of that experience. Like,
Xbox is really good at building new studios, as we know. Look no further than the Initiative.
Perfect Dark's looking awesome. What are you talking about?
Yeah, the trailer from 3 years looking about as good as Beyond Good and Evil 2, I would say.
That game never existed. Don't listen to Travis.
Also true. Yeah. The best part is the guy.
That was the joke.
The guy who led that game and obviously the 2D newer Rayman games, he just retired. He just left. He's like, yeah, I'm out. He does like a cooking show now.
Why not?
Did you know that? Michael Ansel. He just quit one day at Ubisoft and he got started into cooking. Yeah.
We should have him join our annual cook-off. Let's do it, buddy. Throw him in there.
Do the Ubisoft cookbook.
For sure.
Oh man. Okay. Let's get caught up. We get a couple member comments and a super chat to get to. Let's grab it.
Cheese works. Just got into Fallout 76. And it's surprisingly a lot of fun. The environments are beautiful too.
True.
Nice.
Yes.
It's true.
I'm excited to play. I'm gonna start today.
And it did get the next gen update on Xbox and PlayStation 5. Obviously, being an MMO and being Bethesda, it's not going to blow you away visually, but I
was going to say the same thing, Ains. I was going to say, yes, they are beautiful. There's a certain attractiveness to the game, but don't go in expecting it to blow you away. It is it is MMO graphics.
If you just got done watching your lady play Fallout 3, I think expect to be blown away by the graphics because Fallout 3 looks bad. It does not look good. Although I will say on the Series
Fallout 3
X,
on the Xbox Series X with the backwards compatibility looks way better than it should for when it came out.
It does. I will say that they balance. I noticed they balance. It looks like they balance some of the colors because the world looks less permanently green on Xbox on the new version, and then it runs at like 200 FPS from what I could tell. It is going fast. It is just zooming on those frames, so it doesn't look as bad as it ought to, or as it originally did, but it is pretty janky, especially compared to Fallout 76.
Yeah. And I'm playing 76 on PC. I'm playing it's super smooth. obviously, running on a new PC. So,
Is
Alex,
Fallout 4 getting a next gen update, by the way?
yes, the
Yes,
25th
it's
of
like this
April
month.
this week.
Oh my God. What great timing.
Yep.
Yeah. Alex, can back Hogue on their fun. Wait, God, this is a weird sentence. I'm half asleep.
He's a writer,
Can
by
back
the way.
Hogue on our fun
Mhm.
back and forth. Okay, there we go. Love how we have found that common ground when we have landed in opposite sides. Screw Sephiroth post patch.
For the record, I didn't mention any boss names.
Yeah.
That's
See,
true.
But we've all-
Alex,
man.
We've played.
What the hell we put
Final
this even up here
Fantasy
for?
I don't know. I didn't
Alex.
read it ahead of time. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. Damn it,
That's your
Alex.
fault, then.
Yeah, that is my fault.
I mean,
we
there-
actually
you
have
know,
to edit
I
his
could've
reviews
guessed that
sometimes
probably.
too. He'll literally talk about story elements in the review. Alex, you can't say that.
He's
That's
deeply
all right.
into
Damn it,
the
Alex.
game. I like
I mean,
Alex
alright.
a lot.
He's definitely in the game. Christopher Jetser with $5 super chat. Travis did Remnant 2 devs Gunfire Games name switch to ARC, I think. I mean, means anything for the company.
Yeah, so the Remnant 2's dev team, Gunfire Games, did not switch their name. What switched their name was Gearbox Publishing Arm. They rebranded as a company called ARC, and that is obviously not going to have very much of an impact at all on Remnant 2 because it is not that team. It is an interesting move by Gearbox Publishing, though, moving away from that name. When I got the first email from their PR person post name change, I was like, wait, what? So that is a weird change, but yeah, it's not going to have any impact on really any developer specifically. It's kind of a boring corporate rebranding from a publisher that most people don't know about except for when they see logos.
For the record, corporate reorganizations are never boring.
Yes, they are.
And certainly part of the story here is that Gearbox as an entity was being shopped around and sold by Embracer
Yes.
Group. So you want to make
Yes,
sure
they
that you're
were.
clear as to what assets a purchaser is getting and what they're not getting. When names can confuse that issue, you change the names.
There you go. So
There you
there's
go.
a boring explanation on a boring topic. There you go. Great. By the way,
Oh,
so if you liked being bored by that, you will love Hogue Law YouTube channel. Subscribe and like his videos for more content that will put you to sleep. I use it as white noise.
Oh my
to
God.
help me go. to
He's
sleep
going in
each
on you,
night.
Hogue. You didn't expect
when
this.
When I wake up, I just choose a playlist from his channel, and when I wake up, I feel refreshed. And you will get the best sleep of your life. That is the Tie Guy guarantee. So
Hogue's on mute.
Is he muted?
No, he's on mute.
Did you mute him, Ains?
I did not mute him. I didn't touch it.
No rebuttals. No rebuttals, Hogue.
We did a wonderful Hangouts and Headlines this week where we went over some of the drama at NPR, and it was a really good episode. If you like that kind of content, talking about media or business and law, and not being bored, I don't think, come check it out at the Hogue Law YouTube channel. Thank you, Travis, falling asleep in the corner.
Sorry, I don't know. Something triggers when I hear your voice now. It might be the white noise.
Oh my God. All right. Dan, I'm sure has gone off to stretch. Dan, enjoy your stretch, my friend. We are going to talk about No Rest for the Wicked. So, I have played the hell out of this. Travis is reviewing it in early access for IGN. For us, Elu, who's in our chat here, is reviewing it, but I'm helping. So I'm kind of like capturing footage and other things, going to help with the review and have commentary as well. I'll kick us off, Travis. So this is, for those who may not even know what we're talking about, No Rest for the Wicked is the new game from Moon Studios, who made the Ori game. So Ori and the Blind Forest, Ori and the Will of the Wisps. They talked a few months back. They unveiled this, and they basically said they've always wanted to make an action role-playing game. They adore that genre, and it's something they've been working towards for a while. They have been working on this for years, and they wanted to release an early access, which they did 3 days ago on Thursday, to help continue to refine the game up until their 1.0 release. It is only available on Steam right now, but it is coming to consoles once they get to 1.0. which they don't expect will take a very long time. They have a very, what I would call thin roadmap, kind of a plan of what they're going to do, but it's not a lot of detail. But you can buy it now for $40. I think it's 20% off the first week, so it's $32 right now.
Can I say something as someone who has not played this game?
Yeah.
We don't use clips or screenshots on this show very often, but I will say that it is tremendously attractive to look at.
Yes.
Just watching the trailers, seeing what they do, it almost looks like animated concept art or paintings.
Yes.
Watching this game, and so I'm very interested in how it looks,
Yes.
even though I don't generally invest in early access.
It kind of
Yeah, we will definitely get there.
The Witcher card game.
Gwent. But
no,
you're thinking of
Thronebreaker.
Thronebreaker. It kind of reminds me of
Yes.
Thronebreaker's art a little bit, except for more animated and less like portraits. So yeah, it is very cool visually. I will say this. Sorry, I know I'm jumping on you.
I am used to getting cut off and interrupted. It was commonplace.
Hogue started it. I will say visually, the first thing that you see in the game, if you have not looked at any trailers, which I probably saw trailers, but I ignored like our IGN first coverage because I knew I was reviewing it. So I kind of went in blind. The first thing you see is the character creator, and your character has the most horrifying proportions ever. Your arms like go down to your shins, and you just look like, I named my character Neanderthal because he just looks like an absolute ape. And it is like a body horror when you first see it.
It does look very funny.
When you create your character and then you see them in the game in that art style, it suddenly clicks and you stop thinking it's weird. But just originally, when you see a character, you're like, what am I looking at? This is horrifying. But yeah, the art style is very unique and stylized and really cool. And once you see a cutscene in that game, which you see almost immediately after starting it, you're like, okay, I get it. It like looks great. So sorry, Ains, continue.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I was catching up on comments. In fact, a gentleman just commented, said they use a very specific shader that uses light differently, which resembles a book illustration.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. Yeah, they Moon Studios said they worked on it quite a bit, obviously, to get it to look a certain way. So I want to say a few things. So when they unveiled this game, they made very clear, they said this in their demonstration, that what they were going for in this game is not an approach where you're fighting hordes of enemies. Like if you're thinking because it's isometric in an ARPG that it's going to play like Diablo, Path of Exile, Last Epoch, any of those, it's not like that. They mentioned they wanted the combat to be more intense and focused and more one-on-one or two-on-one combat rather than hordes. And I would say that's absolutely true playing the game. In fact, I would say that this is where, we're going to joke about the whole Souls thing, but it is more like a combat-orientated one-on-one game from an isometric perspective that has like ARPG loot and maybe skill or town building, but it's not, the combat itself is nothing like your typical action role-playing game that you have in mind. It's very different. And it's more challenging for sure, which I appreciate. I'm sure Travis appreciates. I know Elu appreciates. But one of the things, Travis, I'll get your commentary on this, but within a short period of time, a couple hours maybe of playing the game, enjoying the hell out of it. And Elu and I were talking in our Discord about there's going to be people who go into this game expecting your typical ARPG experience and then complain that it's too hard and say they don't like it. And that has been a steady flow of commentary around this game since Thursday. In fact, it's getting hit on Steam in reviews for people expecting a Diablo-like experience and it not being that.
Yeah, well, most of the bad feedback on Steam appears to be due to its technical performance, which I would concur with. It does.
See, I can't even speak to it because I have zero issue. But again,
you haven't had like parts of the world like load beneath your feet when you run around the world, stuff like that.
No,
Steam lets you give tech review. I mean, it obviously doesn't judge what you write, but you're giving tech reviews on early access stuff. I mean, isn't that just standard games not done?
Yeah, I mean that would be.
Well, you're using logic though, Hogue.
Yeah, this is Steam reviews, Hogue.
Yeah, this is Steam reviews. You're using the thought. It's an early access title. Won't technical things probably get resolved? The answer is yes, but these reviewers don't think in that vein.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is.
But no, I only have when you get to like a new area, so you run into Sacrament or something, like there'll be like half a second of maybe a slight frame drop for a second. That's about it.
You don't see like the bridge appear in front of you when you leave Sacrament to go out the west corridor. That's weird.
No.
I saw that, and I'm running. I built my PC this last year. It's 4090. All the bells and whistles, but I do see issues. But again, it's early access. Like that's what this is for. I kind of go in with that assumption that it's going to have bugs and whatnot.
Yeah.
I have seen those though. I've seen like creatures die and then they do that thing where they get stretched out and spin off of the screen.
Oh, I did see one of that. I had a dead wolf just flying around yesterday.
I dodge rolled once and went through the map in combat. And again, I don't know how much Ains has played, but I'm done with my review.
Too much.
I finished it yesterday, so I logged 33 hours before writing my review, and
you have played too much as well.
Yeah, I played way too much. But yeah, I obviously really enjoyed it. But yeah, I would concur with the technical issues from my perspective that it's not terrible. Like to Ains's point, he apparently hasn't noticed anything. I definitely have been hit with more issues, but it's not like unplayable. I wouldn't say I ever aside from the time I dodge rolled through the map, I don't think I've got killed because of bad technical performance ever. It just has some weird quirks.
Yeah, so I worked full days at my career work Thursday. It came out Thursday midday. I worked full days Thursday, Friday. I was doing my Witchfire review, which I put up Friday, and I have 21 hours in this game. So I barely slept. It is extremely addicting, at least to me. So I would say a couple of things I really, really love about it that I can touch on just for other people who haven't played it. It is an isometric game, right? But one thing they do extremely well is the level design. Oh, it's also fixed camera, which is unique. You can't spin the camera around.
Sometimes a pain in the ass too.
Sometimes a pain, true. But they make it so
that is Diablo, right? You can't move the camera in Diablo.
Correct.
Yeah, some games are different though. Some isometric games you can kind of spin it around, right? But they position it in such a way so it's very vertical. So there's lots of kind of secrets and avenues you can take. You can jump on the sides of platforms and stuff. There's platforming, and you can discover there's secrets everywhere. So you can kind of take paths through the world in all sorts of various ways and discover things that it's much more expansive in that vein than your typical ARPG that's kind of flat, or maybe a ladder here and there, you know what I mean? Or it shows you something kind of from a 3D perspective, but you can't go there. There's a lot of kind of up and down going through the levels and navigating in different ways in this, which is very, very well done, at least so far. And then the combat, I would say, I love it in the sense of it is very kind of methodical and paced. You have to be thoughtful about your movements. There's a stamina meter. You can block, you can parry. There are iframes like a Souls game, so you can roll through attacks if you time it properly, right? There is sneaking and backstabbing. There are executions. There's a lot to the actual moment-to-moment combat, and you can kind of go two-handed. You can go sword and board. You can go giant heavy weapon. Your typical kind of RPG tropes. But I really, really enjoy the thoughtfulness approach to combat just as much as I enjoy my Diablos, where you're powering up to just take down hordes of enemies, right? Which I love to death, of course. But this is different in a different thing I love as well. I think it's really well implemented so far. Travis, I don't know about your thoughts on that piece.
Yeah, I would agree with pretty much all of that. I think I've talked about on the show how classical ARPGs where you're just obliterating large groups of enemies by hitting the same combination of buttons over and over again has the tendency to make me fall asleep. And so I have talked about that. I love Diablo, but sometimes I fall asleep when I'm playing it because it's just so passive and kind of repetitious. Not that that's a bad thing really, but it does make me fall asleep sometimes. This is not that sort of game. It's a lot more intense. You're having to focus on combat and dodging and getting your timing rolls or timing right with perfect parries and that sort of stuff, which has been really fun. The boss fights are, well, we only got a sample of a couple of them, and for my taste, too many of them are similar to one another at this point. But they're still very fun and challenging boss fights that have a lot more they're a lot more memorable than anything you'll fight in Diablo, aside from maybe like the main story bosses or whatever. But you're definitely not like getting to the end of a dungeon and just killing some like no name, super forgettable demon and then moving on, right? So that part.
I feel like I'm taking
really
straight.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I mean, I love a lot of what Diablo does, but I would say like their boss fight. I would say, you know, their boss fights largely are pretty forgettable. You're kind of just like staying out of the way of bullet hell attacks, and then eventually they're whittling their health down. So I think that they do that a lot better in this game. Also, the story is so far really, really cool. Some interesting characters and great cutscenes, and I
great
also
voice
really
acting.
yeah, the voice acting is fantastic. I also really like the upgrade mechanics of the way the RPG systems work, where you're upgrading your equipment and kind of making very specific decisions about what weapon combinations you want to use. Ains, I agree with you, it does need a respec, because there were way too many times where I found a great weapon and I was just like, this just doesn't work with my build, which really sucks. And then I also really like the upgrading the town mechanic and being able to buy a house there and customize your house so that you can store your items and stuff like that. The beginning of the game, I think, is the weakest part, because until you get about halfway through the total time you can play the campaign, you don't have any way to store your items, and it is painful to get loot because you're constantly having to drop stuff on the ground and juggle an inventory that's way too small. And that doesn't really change until you buy a house, and then you get chests. And then even then, when you get chests, you have to go to your house and manually put them all in and take them out and that sort of stuff. So
inventory management needs some work.
Inventory management needs a lot of work. But I mean, for an early access game, I'm used to early access games often being like really half-baked. And I think that this is in a much, much stronger position. It really just needs to fix the, some of the UI is janky. It needs to fix that. It needs to fix some of the inventory management, especially in the first half, stuff like that. I think the boss fights need to be a little bit more unique. But other than that, I mean, this is pretty far ahead of where you expect a lot of these early access games to go. And my guess is in 6 months, we'll be looking at a pretty different game, especially since the first update they have on the roadmap is adding multiplayer, which is currently not in the game, but it's going to be a big part of it. So interested to see how this develops.
Yeah. I will agree with all that as well. The early part, which tends to happen in some of these games, the inventory management is rough. The stamina management is kind of rough because you got to get used to that meter and you don't have a lot of it to start. So again, it takes a few hours to kind of get into. Once you start getting to the point where you're leveling a bit and you are, finding new weapons, you're starting to get that loot that adds to different abilities. It really opens up. I found a katana yesterday. And I'm typically going dex build with one hand. Found a katana yesterday for the first time, and I upgraded it, made it an ice katana, and I have some really cool abilities on it now, and it is just beautiful. And the animation work in this game is staggeringly good. Like
have you killed somebody from behind using a club?
Yes, I have literally a clip on my profile right now where I finished a quest beating a mini boss by executing him, and it is just brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
The animation for executing somebody with a club, when I snuck up behind somebody with my Ooga Booga, big old club weapon, I wasn't sure what it was going to make me do, but you basically just like knock him on the ground and then just go full caveman on the back of his head, and it's very funny to watch. It was, they did a good job.
It's quite good. And the weapon variety and kind of movement, your skill set with those things is cool. There's some really cool abilities, and they have typical like plague or poison, ice, fire, lightning, all those different things you can kind of put on. It's just really well done. To Travis's point, for what's quote an early access title, this already is probably the favorite thing I've played in a while.
There's also Ains, I'm not sure if you've seen, but there's a like a hard mode element. If you find a diamond piece.
Yep.
Have you found a diamond piece yet? Yeah. Where you get more. So the thing is, you get more XP, but when you die, you lose XP, which is not usually a thing in RPGs where you can actually de-level. But it's for people who want that extra reward for going a little aggressive with that, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, it's just really impressive. I could rave about this for a while. I got a couple comments about it that I wanted to get to for us here. So Nissa's here. Shout out Nissa. Dan, you want me to read these or you want to read them?
Yeah, that's fine. Ains, Travis, how would this look on a handheld like the Steam Deck or Rogue Ally or ROG
So
Ally?
I don't know about you, Travis. I haven't played it on a handheld, but one of the guys I talk to pretty often did play it on Steam Deck. He said he was having trouble, like it wasn't running that well. So he refunded it for now, hoping for better optimization in the future. That's what he told me.
I would not play it on Steam Deck. I think it already has enough technical issues on PC on a proper desktop, so I would just wait. Early access games in general tend to not do well on Steam Decks.
Yeah, I'd give it a little bit. Yep. Elu.
And Elu, the level design is by far the best isometric level design I've ever seen. It's mind blowing how well it is done.
It is something. It is something really, really impressive. To take an isometric game that has that much exploration and, like I said, verticality is just, I can only imagine how long the level designers have spent on it and will continue to spend on it.
So I like the levels. I will say I have one pretty big qualm with the level design, which is that this game has a lot more platforming and climbing on things than you typically see in an ARPG. It's not like Diablo where you're pretty much always on the ground, and the only time you cross gaps,
sometimes you hit B.
Yeah. So the only time the only time you do those interactions is literally when you are just hitting an interact prompt and it does it for you.
Yep.
This game's different. This game, sometimes you need to do platforming. Sometimes you need to solve puzzles. Sometimes you need to climb up on stuff to get over ledges. And sometimes visually, that process is not very obvious. It leads to some situations where you're not sure what you can climb and get on, or you'll climb up something and then your character will just like leap off a cliff. Or you, it has these things. Sometimes you won't be able to solve a puzzle because the angle of things, you're not really sure how to jump on stuff. So it just has like a little bit of like work to do on I think the making it clear what you can do, and some of the controls. Like I can't tell you how many times I killed myself.
We need yellow paint guy in there.
I actually don't think we need yellow paint guy. I don't know, man. Maybe it's just one of those
I gotta
things
tell you, the levels where yellow paint guy went into Rebirth and did his thing were much better than the levels where he was apparently absent that day.
He was on strike.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where like I think the rules of the game need to be a little bit more clear, because I just cannot tell you how many times I've accidentally climbed on something or accidentally jumped off of something and it's led to like a terrible, stupid death. But I probably would say like of the 33 hours I played, at least once per hour, I would just found myself dead because I just did something stupid or I didn't understand the geometry of the level or whatever. And that sort of stuff I think is not very fun for anyone.
You sound pretty dumb.
Yeah, pretty much fully stupid.
That escalated
quickly. No, he's right. He's absolutely right. There are even where you know where to go to, just to add to your point, Travis, like say there's like a plank you have to walk across, right? Because you can't move the camera, the angle are sometimes kind of weird. And so like you think you're walking straight, but then you'll kind of go left or right too much and fall off. You know, that happens too. So he's right.
I mean, it reminds me of like PlayStation 1 era.
Yeah, that's kind of what it reminds me of, like the isometric platformers where like half of the game was you figuring out like how to use your depth perception to understand exactly where something was located.
Yeah, it feels like something they will tune for sure.
What was that isometric platformer that came out a couple of years ago, Hogue, where you play like a little wizard in a wizard hat? I'm sure you played that game.
A Hat in Time.
No, that's not the one I was thinking of.
No, that's not it.
Sorry, you're a little wizard in a wizard hat.
Little wizard in a wizard hat. Hat in Time was the pixel one, right?
No, Hat in Time is essentially a big 3D collectathon platformer.
Wait, maybe that is the one I'm thinking of.
A 3D collectathon platformer? Can I recommend one for you?
The Hat in Time.
Yes, please, Ains. What would you recommend on a 3D collectathon?
Bang on balls. If you want a collectathon that has a sense of humor and is a blast, check it out. Great game.
I really like A Hat in Time.
Dan's game of the year.
Ains'
God.
game of the year. Didn't even come out this year. It's that good.
The game
It's
I was
true.
thinking
It's
of
just-
was Lumo, for the record. That's what I was
Okay.
thinking of.
Lumo.
Remember
I
that
didn't
one?
play that one. Yeah,
I
I
don't
didn't play
remember
it.
that one.
Okay. Well, that was like a kind of a modernized symmetric platformer. Sometimes this game reminds me of that because I mean, again, I don't think the platforming is bad. I actually think it's super interesting that they have it. I just think they could do some work on introducing their players to that concept, because I probably spent like the first 2 hours not realizing just how much I could climb, and there's a lot of secrets hidden and stuff like that. So I just think they can do a little bit more there. But it's still, I like that part of it. I like the exploration and the way more kind of vertical experience than in a Diablo. I think they just do some really interesting stuff that you don't see in other ARPGs, and they very clearly didn't follow any formula. They just sort of put the elements that they liked from different genres into one game, and it ends up working pretty well.
Yeah, it's very clear they're going for their own thing here, and I like that a lot about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I could say more, but I think we've kind of covered all the basics of it. Obviously, look for Travis's review, look for Elu's review. We'll have those will be up this week. And
that'll be up tomorrow. Yeah.
Travis will be up tomorrow. It's phenomenal. I'm enjoying the living hell out of it. I'm literally thinking about playing it, as we're talking right now.
It's funny. Your conversation was making me think I need to play more Diablo. But yeah, it doesn't sound like it's for me. I do think it looks gorgeous, so I'm impressed by how it looks. But I think Diablo 4 is probably where I belong on this.
Maybe. I think maybe you should give it a try. I know you're not into like difficulty and that sort of thing, but I think the story is almost good enough to force you to learn it, I think.
So I wanted to have a conversation with you guys about this, and I know we've kind of dabbled in this conversation many times, but I was having this conversation on our Discord yesterday and looking at the Steam reviews, and I see some people on my timeline talking about, and I actually got some DMs about it being extremely hard. And I get to the place where Travis and I have joked about on this show where I don't find this game extremely hard, but I love these types of games. I play them a lot, right? Where
you guys never do.
Yeah. But I think where I struggle with, and I know we've had this conversation, but where I struggle sometimes is when people will, not that they call this game hard or games like it hard, but that they say games like this are cheap or not fair, or they need to be tuned so more people, exclusionary, all those words. And I just feel like there has to be a place. Now, obviously, you talk about audiences for a game, and a game needing to find an audience based on financial to be successful. That's its own thing. We all obviously understand. But I think we need to get more in the habit, not us here, but just in general as a community, just saying it's okay that this game is a challenging game and it's not for me. And that's fine. Like, absolutely. I think people need to be okay with that. Like, every game does not have to be for everyone. And I just get really, really exhausted with the conversation of, I really wanted to like this game, but they've made it too hard. It needs an easy mode, or it needs this, or they need to change this. It's like, how about they just let the game be the game? And if you either, and I don't mean this in a sarcastic sense, but you can't play it for whatever reason, or, it just doesn't suit your preferences, move on. There's plenty of other games to play. And I don't like, I guess what I'm saying is I don't like people going to the developer to complain about their design of a game when there's no fault in the design. It just doesn't meet either the expectation that single player had, or, just to be quite frank, they're not talented enough or good enough, or don't want to spend enough time to get good enough to play that game.
I like that you used "get good" there, Ains. Yes. Well, outside of
there are time investments for these games, right? Like, it expects you to put time in to get better. And if you don't want to do that, yes, exactly.
Yeah. You're learning systems, you're learning reactions. I was actually just thinking about this when I was playing Final Fantasy, which is that you don't inherently know exactly what that boss is going to do or how it's going to react in various ways. And that learning that is how you develop your strategies on the fly. But outside of Travis's very thinly veiled insult about I don't like difficulty, I actually really do like challenge coming from my games. And one of the games that was the most disappointing to me, Kingdom Hearts 3, was so disappointing because it had basically no pushback for anything you wanted to do for the whole game, which is just the most boring thing. And some people think they want that, and developers are developers because they know that people don't actually want that. That is in fact boring and lame to try to progress through. But I do think there are designs that can be unfair. We talked about DPS checks of a certain stripe. You can set that window wrong. You can get the math wrong. It's too tight to really be interesting. And the DPS check I was talking about with respect to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth essentially has a requirement for how you're going to treat this thing that you can't know in advance. I think that's unfair. I think that's unfun. And I think you can have fairness complaints, but I also think that people aren't always equipped with the tools to recognize what is fair and unfair and what is just challenging. And you, Ains, saying that this game is fair, presumably that has something to do with things not popping in off screen, telegraphing attacks, the things we would consider fair in the scope of the game are well done.
Yes.
But as someone who was maybe not super high skill beforehand and now has a left hand that is mostly functional, but not always, I can't play some of these higher end games, and that's okay. That's why I said when I said about No Rest for the Wicked, it doesn't sound like it's for me, but Diablo 4 is, right? Like that's on an axis, it's on a spectrum, and Diablo 4 lets you hold down the A button sometimes and roll through things. Other times you cannot. And I would not call Diablo 4 hard, especially since you can grind past most of the stuff. But there are instances where there's a lot to keep track of and a lot of challenge to playing it. And it's the challenge that I am looking for more than the technical combat. I've never really liked iframes and dodge rolls, and I really, really never liked parry. So it's not for me.
Yeah, and those are core components to this game, which is why I want to call it out, because I've seen a lot of my mutuals on Twitter going into this game, and I think expecting a Diablo. It's really not, as I've stressed, and they get disappointed. And so I'm making a point to stress, like, to set expectations for this game, because it's, that I figure that can help some people. To your point,
that's right. And no, I'm. You get the FOMO or the jealousy or whatever you want to say, which is that I think it looks gorgeous. I'd love to see Diablo take a crack at whatever it is that they're doing in terms of visuals. But if it's not for me, it's not for me. But Travis says I should not worry about difficulty because the story is good enough. I will see. I'll check that out potentially after it's available outside of early access.
I think it's worth it. Like, there's some games where I can see room for a Hogue learning it without hating the game, right? And so, like, Another Craps Treasure is a great example of one where I'm like, yeah, I'm going to recommend that game to Hogue. Like, he should play that one because it's not, say too much, but yeah.
Yep. I know I enjoyed like Lies of P, but I only ever got I don't even know if I got halfway through that game.
That game is hard though. That one I would have been like, don't play that, Hogue. You're gonna try. I will make a counterpoint to Ains's point, which is I do agree with you, Ains, that some games just aren't for you. But on the flip side of that, you can only advocate for your opinion, right? And if your opinion is that you feel like the game isn't what you wanted, even if that's the developers designed it to be a thing that you just happen to not like, it's still fine for you to say, hey, feedback developer, I don't like this thing you made, even if they've accomplished all of the goals that they set out to accomplish. Sometimes
just like it's their job, just like it's their job to design and set up things beforehand. It's their job to filter the good stuff from the detritus in the commentary and decide where it is that they want to live.
Exactly. If they get enough feedback from people saying, hey, look, I bought this game and I really don't like the direction you guys took, that is still useful feedback, even if they look at it and go, okay, but all of these people commenting aren't the people we built the game for and we like what we built. That can still be, I'm sure every single Dark Souls and Elden Ring out there gets similar comments from a player base that is not intended for saying, hey, I don't like this thing. You can go to a rock concert and say, hey, this music is a little loud for me. I don't like rock music. It's not always the most helpful feedback, but I would say that as a consumer, if you don't like the thing that's happening, it's really your only course of action. And so I don't have a problem with people who aren't into these types of games saying, hey, I don't like that you made this type of game, especially since these are the people who made Ori, and a lot of people really like what Ori is, and this is a very different direction for them to take.
Come on.
So yeah, I mean, I
You're
get
being
why
silly.
somebody would say that. So
You're being silly.
I mean,
No, I don't think
think
Travis
so.
is. I think it is fair to say we want developers to do what they want. This is obviously a very different game than Ori, but it's not wrong for somebody to go to a developer and expect something similar to the experience they got in the last product.
I don't
No,
know if that's
I
true.
disagree with that.
I don't know if I would go that far, Hogue. What I'm saying is I don't think it's wrong for them to give the feedback that they don't like the new direction that they chose, because I think that's useful for the developer. And if you don't like the thing, it's really your only course of action is to give the feedback.
No,
that
it's
you
not
have.
though. Your other course of action is to not play it and go play something else.
Yeah, but you as a consumer, you should try to advocate for the things you want. And so I don't think that it's wrong to say your opinion. Like, say your opinion. If you don't like the thing they made, say it, but don't harass them. Obviously, you don't have to say it every day for the next 2 years until they put something else out. But if you liked Ori and you don't like this action game, then say your piece and move on. But I don't think there's anything wrong with saying your piece, because that is your job as somebody who buys these things, is to
I agree with that. Yeah, especially in early access. So I get that. But I would push back a little bit on the thought of Moon Studios made Ori and people like that, therefore they can give feedback that they don't like this. I think that's a weird jump to make, because that starts to get into the territory we've discussed here a lot, which is like, shouldn't developers be free to create whatever the heck they want? They are
free, but in the market, you can say, I had expected something a little bit more fanciful, or a little bit whatever it is that you liked about Ori, and say this isn't matching my expectations. And then the right, Travis is correct. The right role of the developer is probably, okay, that's fine, but this is what we made, and we're proud of this.
But where does the onus go on the player then? You say, I expected something more like Ori. Well, the developer debuts this game 2 months ago. They do a deep dive presentation of what this game is and what you should expect. Where's the onus on the player to actually not just buy this game blind and say, oh, I expected Ori? That doesn't make any sense.
I mean, at some point there is a role of marketing of like, hey, making it clear and setting expectations with the player. So part of that is on the developer, and then also part of it is on like, do your research before buy a game. So I would say it's both. But even if you totally knew what this game was before it came out, you can still then say, hey, I don't like that you guys made an action game. I like Metroidvanias, make more Ori type games or stuff like that, because that's what I like. I still think you have almost.
Well, usually you're going to send that message with the revenue.
Yeah, exactly. You send the rest of the message by not buying it, but you also have every right to like tell the developer how you feel. To Hogue's point, I think that the right thing to do if you're a developer is to just ignore it and say, well, we found a market and we can do both, and our developers want to make this, so that's what we're going to prioritize, is keeping our developers happy and letting them be creative. There's 100% a counterpoint to what you're saying, Ains, which is like, I'm on your side of like, devs should make the stuff that they want to make. But if I were a developer, I would want to know what percentage of my former players aren't happy or are happy with the direction I chose. And so I think all feedback is useful, even negative feedback.
Well, I won't go so far as to say all feedback is useful, because I run a YouTube channel and I've seen comments on my YouTube channel.
Fair.
But reasonable minds can offer good feedback on both sides of the coin, and unreasonable ones will offer unreasonable feedback.
Yeah.
Very true. Very true. I think Stephen Danton, who is someone I've interviewed on the show, who created Unto the End, a indie game, very challenging indie game. I was talking to him briefly about this yesterday, and he made a really good point from a development point of view, which was player bases typically will, if you show them one thing, so show them X, and then the game plays like X, they tend to be more understanding than showing them X and then the game being like Y.
Yeah,
right.
That makes
so
sense.
I think that's why I brought up the fact that it felt to me anyway, and maybe again, we're in this stuff, we live this stuff, we look at it every week, we write about it, we talk about it, right? So maybe someone who just saw from the developers of Ori and then bought this game, to Hogue's point, that's different. But I think,
or somebody who saw from the developers of Ori and then saw it described as an ARPG and thought Diablo, and it's neither.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, you look at the I think
this is kind of on like its back foot already because it's not what the developer did, and it's not really in that much in the genre that they described it as. So there's kind of a lot of consumer confusion, I think, around this.
But
It's not much of a Souls-like. It's not a Diablo, and it's not Ori. So I do think that there are
Just its own
instances where
thing.
that can cause trouble. And to your point, Ains, you see this in movies, right? Some of the lowest cinema scores that you see for movies are ones that had trailers that are then evaluated as not representative of the final product.
Sure.
And that tends to be the worst scoring stuff from early
and
audiences.
that's not what's happened here.
Well, I mean, reasonable minds can differ as to whether this, with a kind of painterly artistic look, is representative of what you can expect if you don't watch all of the marketing or the Vidocs or whatever here.
So I think you're making my point for me in the sense of
I'm not going to oblige the player base to have watched all the stuff on the YouTube channel or what have you.
I think that's where we differ then. I think if you look at a screenshot and then expect a game to play a certain way, that's on you. That's your fault.
They also described it as an ARPG, though, which I think carries a very specific play style that this does not have in common. So I think it's a little bit of column A, column B, right? A little bit of it is like
it's like saying a JRPG, though. It is an ARPG. It just doesn't play like Diablo because Diablo has like a stranglehold.
It doesn't play
on the
like
ARPG.
It doesn't play like
moniker.
any ARPG, though. Can you name one ARPG that plays like this? Not Path of Exile.
I mean, no, not Path of Exile. That plays more like Diablo. Again, I mean, there's kind of an expectation there. I agree, but I think what Hogue was saying is it's isometric. It's got an art style that looks like the games you expect. Therefore, the expectation of the player is it plays like that. And I would say there's got to be some onus on the player to kind of at least look at the game and research it before just spending money and assuming it's going to play like something. That's not on the developer.
You guys are both right. Like there is onus on the player to do a little bit of research, and there's also onus on the dev to explain what their game is. And I think that there were failures on both sides. There's certainly failures on the consumer side of not doing the research, which there always are. But I also think the dev didn't do themselves any favors by describing their game as an ARPG and doing some of the other stuff that they did that I think carries baggage, right? That makes it a little bit. If it were me, I would have just said, hey, this is kind of a hodgepodge of different genres and it's sort of a new thing. And I wouldn't have said the word ARPG. I would try to stay away from it.
But it is an ARPG. I mean,
I know, but it's not what people expect when they say that. When you have that, it's like when people say Souls-like, they expect certain things, and if you don't have all of them, then they go, okay, well, it's kind of a Souls-like. Why did you use that word to describe it? And so,
well, action RPG isn't super useful anyway. I'm not sure any of the games.
No, neither is JRPG, neither is Souls-like. Like they get thrown around a lot, but it's just the wording that the community kind of.
Specifically, action RPG is every game we have right now.
Souls-like is like the most useful. I think Souls-like gets used a lot because it has an agreed upon definition, basically, right? Whereas JRPG doesn't. I thought ARPG did, but apparently now ARPG can just mean top-down action game, which I don't think I've used it. I've seen it used that way. It's almost always been used to be like a Diablo-like, basically. So I don't know. I think both sides probably could have done better with messaging.
I think unveiling the game with a presentation of what the game is, specifically saying it's not the type of ARPG that you've played before, and showing the combat is about the best they can do. Outside of that, which is what they did, what else are you supposed to do? That's what I'm saying.
And I don't know the state of the Steam page right now, but are there really that many negative views?
It's mixed reviews.
It's mixed.
Yeah.
But
the mixed reviews are a lot because of technical issues.
Yes.
The game does suffer technical issues, and then also there was a really weird thing that I sent Ains last night, where apparently people are getting like Trojan spy software from installing the game, which is a really scary red flag. I don't know what that's about.
They are, or they're getting flagged for it by one of the Defender apps. I mean, you never know on those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea what the hell happened.
The file is called Trojan, so I don't know. It was Trojan whack attack. It looks like an actual I don't know. Maybe I don't know if they got hacked or something weird's happening.
Our information is going to be leaked yet again.
Well, I checked.
Everybody knows where Travis lives.
Everybody does know where I live. It's true.
But anyway, we didn't have to stay on it that long. But I don't know. I don't know. Not specific to No Rest for the Wicked. There's plenty of games that I see or have played or demo whatever where I'm just like, that game's not for me. You know, it may be beloved by millions of people. Final Fantasy Rebirth, a great example. Beloved game. It's going to sell millions of copies, just like Remake. It's not for me. It's fine.
You don't like busty anime ladies? What's wrong?
I mean, it's just not for me. I'm not going to go to Square and be like, I don't like this game. Make it more like Witcher. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Some people like that though. Some people like that sort of advocacy, and I'm all for consumers telling devs what they want. But to your point,
this is a heck of a thought experiment. Would Rebirth be better if it were more like Witcher 3? Maybe.
Every game would be better if it was more like Witcher 3. Come on.
Yeah, and I think there's two types of people. There's people who quietly ignore it, right? Who just go, okay, well, clearly not for me. I'm going to move on with my life. And then there's some people who feel a need to advocate for the things that they do want from developers. And I don't think either of those is wrong. So I just want to be, that's all. I just want to kind of state, I think there is another side to it, which is if a game's not for you, that doesn't mean you can't complain about it.
Well, and Final Fantasy is an interesting.
Some people make a great living that way.
Yeah, I know. I mean, obviously you can. I mean, we know that, right? But it gets tiresome after a while.
It bothers you. I get that.
Yeah, especially with how many games there are, right? Like there's. In fact, Sard had a great comment here. Sorry to cut you off, Hogue. Sorry, games aren't supposed to be for everyone, but there's a game for everyone. Exactly. Go find your game.
That's right. Go play Sticky Business if you're not enjoying No Rest for the Wicked.
There you go. You got Sticky Business. You're good to go. Which, by the way, is both a funny and crazy name at the same time. The last comment on this, I don't want to stay on it, but where I started, and we kind of went on a tangent, was that I don't like when games like this are called unfair or cheap or, those types of things, because I think that's a disingenuous way to kind of describe what that player may be taking as difficult. Doesn't mean it's unfair. It doesn't mean it's cheap. It doesn't mean it's broken. It doesn't mean those things. Like
I was going to say it doesn't mean that it's unfair, but there can be unfairness.
There can be, right? We've all played a game where we're like, all right, that was bullshit. Like, come on.
Of course, of course. Yeah. But I'm saying in this instance, I wouldn't categorize No Rest for the Wicked that way. Just like I see people say some of the From games, it's a classic one, right? Souls games, like, oh, they're cheap and unfair. It's like, that's just not true. Like, if the game was cheap, you wouldn't have players who could beat every single one of them without taking a single hit. It's a skill game. Okay, you either learn it.
Falling through the floor was pretty cheap, I must say. Cheap way to.
You know what I'm saying. You're just being antagonistic to be goofy. I know. I got you.
It's where Travis lives.
I know. I know.
Travis, folks. Send us your comments.
You know what's funny? You know what's really funny is my entire life, people have been telling me I'm antagonistic. And it's literally just me being my regular personality. Imagine you being yourself, and then the feedback from that being, wow, you're always trying to piss people off, and you're just like, dude, I'm not. Like, I'm just being me. It's so.
Is Travis not for you? Send your comments to Ains and
Yeah, actually, you probably have sent your comments to me. I could show you. My inbox is currently filled with people telling me to kill myself. So feedback received.
Hey, you're the one who said they could give it. I mean, hey,
no, hey, I have 4 people giving me feedback. Water off the back. It doesn't bother me at all. I assure you.
By the way, Joe asks, shout out to Joe over the trophy room. Is there controller support on PC? Yes, it's actually designed for controller primarily.
Ask that question. Are you guys playing with controllers?
Yeah.
Yes.
I can't imagine playing this game on mouse and keyboard.
No, I love it on controller. Yep. So it actually, when you start the game, it recommends playing with a controller.
It does. Yeah. Which is something I really like that Steam games started doing. They'll like show a little controller logo when you boot up some games. It'll be like, please play on controller. And I'm like, I will. Thank you, PC. Thank you.
Yeah, they do. Let's get caught up on super chats here.
Greg from Poland.
Yes, he said to pronounce it Greg in Hogue's chat. Yes, it's on Hogue's side of the house.
What's up, Greg? Yeah, I'm half Polish, so I don't know how to say anything.
Everybody state your races.
Yeah.
That time of the show.
That time.
Papers, please.
We're Shefkis on my mom's side. I'm listening. I've been listening to your podcast for at least 2 years and love it. It's the first time I get to watch you guys live.
Awesome.
It's always great to hear experienced enthusiasts and professionals. Cheers from Poland.
Okay, I would love to hear as a follow-up from this person which people on the panel he considers to be experienced enthusiasts and which he considers to be professionals.
I'm not.
I would love to hear this. I really want to know. Which are you?
That's awesome, though, Greg. Thank you so much. 2 years and first time
Yeah.
catching us live. Appreciate you swinging
Awesome.
by.
That is
I wonder
great.
what time is it in Poland right now? I wonder. It's got to be maybe 8, 9 p.m. Something like that.
I think Poland is like +7 on Eastern or something like
To
that.
East?
So
Yeah, that's about so +8 to where. Yep, that's about right. So thank you, Greg. Awesome. Thank you very much for the super chat. Great to have
6
you with
p.m.
us.
It's only +5.
Oh, not too bad. Not too bad. 6 p.m. All right. Yeah, you just said 6 p.m. in your chat. Googleman, you are late today, sir. What is
So
this?
That's all right. Google Man, watch the Supergiant's recent Hades 2 technical test. Looks promising. Can't wait
Yes.
until the trilogy is completed and the complete edition released. Fantastic.
Yes, Google. Thank you for the super chat as always, my friend.
I'm
Yes,
very
so
excited
Steve
for
at
Hades
SG
2.
is playing Hades 2.
Oh,
He is
man.
raving about it as much as I'm raving about No Rest for the Wicked. So good time for all of us right now.
Hades should be great.
It will
Yeah.
be great.
Yeah, excited for that one for sure.
Dee cried when she saw that reveal trailer at the Game Awards. That's how you know that she's excited for that
She
one.
likes it that much, huh? The
Yeah,
first one?
she's a huge fan. Yeah.
Nice.
Although she's in that weird camp of people who think Zagreus should be with his brother, Death or whatever.
I don't remember anything
Death.
about the story of that game.
What? Oh,
No.
man. Anyway.
Google, thank you as always. Sid
with the Indian rupees.
Yes.
I think. This is weird. Didn't they explicitly say that it has Souls-like inspirations?
Yes, that was my point.
Yeah.
Like they were clear about what this game is or was before they launched it.
Yep.
Well, he has a
Yeah.
follow-up to that point. Sid again.
I'm with Ains on this. All right, there you go.
Hey, I get one. I don't get
That's fair.
I'm with Ains very often, so that's cool. Thank you.
Fair.
Yeah. Sid,
We're
thank you
all
very
with
much. Good to have you back with us live. Hope everything's going
We're
well.
all
Thank
with
you for the
experienced
generosity.
enthusiast that is Ains. We're all on his side.
Experience seasoned, we call them. Yes.
Seasoned enthusiast.
Yeah. Sid, thank you very much. And Shoosh.
And shoosh. I enjoy the Bitcast brings together nice people and Travis. It's very nice.
He posted
that's-
this right after you made the comment about yourself, Travis.
That is the feedback I have received time and time again. So love you too, baby girl.
Shoosh is great. Thank you, Shoosh. All right. So Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, boys. Did you watch this presentation? Did you watch the unveil?
I did not.
Watch the video. It's
What video?
trailer.
The trailer? Did you watch
Whatever,
the trailer
like
or the like
No, that's
overview?
it. Just
the
the
trailer.
trailer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they did. So people who don't know, Warhorse announced Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 officially on Thursday. They did a trailer to Dan's point, which is like the story trailer. It kind of shows where the game's picking up. And then they did a 20-minute overview as well that you can watch, which talks about the game's development and goes, much more of a deep dive. So to give you the information directly from Warhorse, here's the details. So it is a direct sequel. It picks up right after the first one and continues the story of Henry, who's the main guy in the first game. This one is 2 maps, and it is double the size of the previous game. Takes place in what is called the Bohemian Paradise, which is a real place in Czech Republic that you can actually still visit today, they said. And it's, modeled after that actual area in reality. The focus is still on real combat, kind of the sword board, like they did in the first game, but it's been refined and expanded. They also added
Unreal.
Stop it. They also added bows, crossbows, and early powder weapons. So they've expanded the combat, and they are expanding upon the idea of being what they call a true RPG, which means you can kind of just go about things however you want to accomplish your tasks, which you could kind of do in the first one, which is part of what I liked about it. And then lastly, they said it's coming this year, but they did not give a release date. So we'll see if it actually launches this year or not. So I would highly recommend it. 2 things. I know we mentioned this last week when we knew this was coming, is if you haven't played the first one and you enjoy first-person RPG, like a I always describe it as medieval Skyrim. I don't know if there's a more efficient way to describe it, but that just feels right.
Lord Jesus.
It seems to get the job done. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
medieval is positioned there for realistic, right? I mean, don't
Pretty
think
much,
of magic
yes.
or dragons.
No, not fantasy. Yeah,
But
take the fantasy out.
why aren't there any people of color in Bohemia, guys?
Hey, man, go get that job at Kotaku, Travis.
Those articles always crack me up.
Did you see the article comparing Stellar Blade to Hades 2? Crazy stuff.
I did not. Is that a
No,
Kotaku
I didn't.
article?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a Kotaku like reference point.
Article feels strong.
Suffice it to say, they feel differently about the various designs in Stellar Blade and Hades 2. Speaking of which, Stellar Blade is this week, isn't it?
Yes, I think so. I don't know off the top of my head. I'm sure chat will tell us, but I think so. But yes, play the first game. It's really, really well done. It's very unique. And I am hugely, hugely excited for this. If you are excited for this and you didn't catch the 20-minute deep dive they did, definitely watch it. It goes into how they design the map and capture the real world. It goes into the soundtrack, and they're recording with an actual chorus in a church, to give it the unique sound, obviously, of that time period. So this is 15th century, I believe, if I'm going off of memory. So anyway, it just looks really, really good, and I'm very excited for Warhorse. They're a great studio, great guys over there, and I'm definitely pumped for this one. Definitely shot up to one of my most anticipated for this year.
And Deliverance was huge, so if they're doubling it, this is a crazy project.
It was a big game, yeah, for a relatively small team, in terms of kind of that scope. So yeah, I don't know how big Warhorse has expanded. I don't know what that studio looks like nowadays in terms of staff, but it looks really impressive. And if you didn't know, I think we mentioned this last week, but it's surprisingly strong story in Kingdom Come Deliverance. Henry as a character, as a protagonist, is really cool. There's funny points, there's good writing, there's humor. I mean, it's just good. It's just a good
You'll be
game.
throwing poop within the first couple minutes.
But it's kind of got that time of day thing. You can kind of sneak, and you can break into people's houses. You can steal stuff, and you can just kind of play it however you want. It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Lord Jesus.
Lord Jesus.
Praise be.
Was it Lord Jesus or Praise Jesus?
They say, I told you my friend walked in on me doing it. He was like, "We must pray to Lord Jesus," and then like a fantasy. I was like, that is.
I like how
hard to look at.
The story where Travis gets walked in by his roommate is accidentally praising Jesus.
It's great, dude. It's fantastic. It's just, if you don't know that the game is like going for 100% realism, you think that's a weird choice. They didn't come up with their own gods. They just took one from real life and made that the
church is an important part of the story.
It is an important part of the story.
Yeah,
also, illiteracy is an important part of the story.
Yeah, that's true too.
I like
it's
Deliverance.
a huge part of it. Dude,
I like
Deliverance is really
you have
cool.
to have a certain amount of acceptance of an attempt at realism, right? And I mean video game realism, not realism, but
yes.
I want to review the sequel.
I would love to review it. I don't know how saying how big it is, it might be a daunting task depending on how much time you get. Usually obviously IGN, you get more time. For smaller outlets like us, sometimes we get like a couple days, and it's like, I can't review this in a couple days, So
yeah.
But on our site, we did put up a small preview of it with all the screenshots they shared in the press release and some of the information. So if you want more info on it, that is up along with both of the videos as well. So you can check that out. But
yeah, that is definitely going to be a goblin mode game.
Yes.
Or maybe a goblin a la mode game, which is where you go goblin mode and you're eating ice cream at the same time.
You're losing, Dan.
I can't give you that one. My goodness.
I'm gonna start that. That's gonna be a new. I'm gonna say goblin. I went goblin a la mode, and I'm gonna show a picture of me with a bowl of ice cream.
It's just gonna be pictures of dirty Travis in a darkened room eating bowls of ice cream.
Honestly, goblin a la mode sounds a lot better than goblin mode. I must say, there's way more ice cream involved. Sounds nice.
This is true.
Sounds nice.
So we'll obviously be talking more about that later this year. Wanted to touch on quickly, and I know we've touched on this aspect a lot of the industry, but taking a hard turn here about Take-Two reporting a layoff of 5% of its staff and canceling some projects, which they didn't define specifically. But just some bullets on this one, which are, I guess, interesting. Going back to if you find this stuff interesting as part of the industry, because we've seen a lot of layoffs this year. We've talked about that. Take-Two basically filed saying they're going to let go 5% of their staff by the end of 2024. So the interesting part about this, obviously, is they just spent $460 million on Gearbox, acquiring Gearbox and its IPs. They previously, back in 2022, they acquired Zynga for $12.7 billion, with a move into hopefully mobile, which obviously we've seen. Xbox did that obviously with Activision Blizzard King and other companies. But prior to that acquisition of Zynga, they were on a 5-year plus streak of profitability by quarter. Take-Two was. And despite the success, obviously, of the continued success of GTA 5, the continued success of NBA 2K, which is like a cash cow for them, and other games in their portfolio, they are now going on 7 straight, about to be 8 straight quarters, so 2 years of losses since the acquisition of Zynga. So I guess I just give you that context to say, here's another company that seemingly was trying to push into the mobile space. Obviously, we don't know all the details of what was managed or mismanaged, but is now losing profitability or has lost over the past couple of years. Now they are laying off 5% of their staff, despite Zelnick, the CEO, telling IGN earlier this year, just a few months ago, they had no further plans for layoffs. So kind of just another one of those stories of what's going on in the industry from a financial perspective. But, never good to see, as we always say.
Well, from a business and legal perspective on that quote, at least, I will say that's why you don't plan layoffs, is so that you can go tell IGN you don't have any plans for layoffs.
Yes, exactly. Even though they are planned to some degree every time. You just don't vocalize it.
Right. Well, you know that you're looking at the budget line and you're thinking that the labor cost has to go down by some amount during that year, but you don't plan anything, so you can tell IGN you're not planning.
You're planning on the next quarter turning everything around and making a lot of money. But
right. We don't know what GTA 5 is going to do in quarter 3, 2024. Who knows?
We kind of do. We know it's going to sell really well. But I don't think that's their problem. I think their problem is they overpaid for Zynga, a company that was already on a way downward slope and a saturated mobile market.
Zynga and their sorry to cut you off, Travis. So I'm just accentuating your point that Zynga, one thing I forgot to mention, their overall profitability since inception was negative 500 million.
Yeah.
Right. Well, they came up really during like the Facebook microtransaction era. And even when they made this transaction, it was the highest, most expensive transaction in video gaming history for about 2 minutes, because it happened just before Microsoft announced their Activision deal. And that was a bold play, but I would say reasonably, you wouldn't have expected it to pay for itself in the first 2 years anyway. So I don't know that that's a direct correlation to what it is Take-Two's doing. They've clearly got certain amounts of cash. They're buying Gearbox that they're trying to expend, that they're trying to use strategically and hopefully thoughtfully when we're in an economy right now where money is pretty expensive. So they're trying to get deals where they can. Zynga may wind up being a terrible purchase, but I don't think we know at 7 quarters or 8 quarters out.
Oh, I'm not basing it off of their financials. I'm basing it off of the current state of the mobile market and the games that that company has been responsible for in the modern era. The way I view them as somebody who's, kind of a younger millennial guy, is Zynga makes games that people's moms play. You know what I mean? Like, it's sort of just like an old school has-been company. And I think they overpaid tremendously for it. And I would be shocked if they weren't having buyer's remorse right now, because it's just such a, I can't think of a game that I've played from Zynga that like regularly, other than like Words with Friends, right? Like, that's the last one I can remember that they made of any.
I think they have a publishing arm too. I don't know.
Honestly.
Can you guys name a game they've made in like the past 5 years?
Well, I have the internet, but no, not off the top of my head.
No, they're not my type of games.
Yeah, so that's my point. Is I'm
going to go let them know how much I hate their games.
Yeah, you should, if you want it to change. Although I think we all have spoken with our wallets on this one. But yeah, I know they make mobile games, but to my point is that I don't think they make good mobile games, and I can't think of any mobile games they've made that have had like an impact or any sort of cultural.
I'd have to look it
touchstone.
up. I'd have to look it up.
Well,
I
I
remember
don't
the
think-
old ones. I remember
I
the
don't
ones
think
from
they
the
were
aughts.
buying Zynga for their IPs, certainly, right? I think they were buying them for whatever expertise they had in these markets where modern console-based or focused video game companies are trying to get a better understanding of all the money that's being made in mobile or on social media or what have you. So, I mean, I think that's the idea. I have no doubt that when they were putting the math together for this purchase, that was what was on the whiteboard or the PowerPoint presentation, was they were going to get this institutional know-how and they were going to use their IPs that they already had to figure out how to make GTA into a Facebook game or a mobile game. And that would take years to do anyway. So I just don't know that we can judge it yet. And they might be having buyer's remorse. We don't know exactly what they're working on behind the scenes or whether or not they have gelled as a unit. But it doesn't surprise me that a capital outlay in the $13 billion range is one that is being looked at closely. I don't think that you can draw a direct line from that to layoffs now. To some extent, that to me is reflective of delays or projects not coming together. And certainly when you don't release a Rockstar game for like an entire generation, it's going to be a problem for what you were presumably planning in your budget lines, because I don't think anybody planned for the difference between Red Dead 2 and GTA 6 or GTA 5 and GTA 6 to be this long. And so I think Take-Two might wind up being in more trouble than they think if GTA gets delayed or anything like that. And we all expect it to be a banger and to sell a jillion, but it's probably not going to be GTA 5 because nothing ever in the history of video games has been GTA 5.
I
Also
think it
true.
probably will be. I think it'll be GTA 5 again.
Yeah,
I'm saying you can't bet your company on we are going to hit this outlier marker that nobody's ever come anywhere near before. We're going to do it again, and it's going to be at least as big, if not bigger.
Yeah.
You can't run your company that way.
I think you can.
yeah, you can. We'll see how it turns out.
That way. It's a big bet, but
okay. Well, I mean, I have individuals on this podcast that I would not nominate for my CEO position.
I think you're definitely smart in that regard. So I quickly looked on Zynga's website, and no joke, I think I counted 100 games, all small app,
shovelware.
Free,
they
shovelware.
They make shovelware, yeah.
And Farmville, which is apparently was their big one, right? Farmville, to Travis's point, became very big on Facebook like a decade ago. So
I mean, they used to make games. I remember their model. So just full transparency, Zynga is like down the street, like they're SF company. And my recollection of their reputation was that they would wait to see like a game catch on, and then they were really good at like within a week cloning that game and then having a huge marketing budget for it and just like destroying the original version of the game. That's what I remember them for. And so for me, like if I were looking at the mobile space, I wouldn't really view them as like experts. I would look at them as like a legacy company that was really good at a specific thing that would not be something I would buy in the 2020s. You know what I mean? Like it's just.
But even if they're really good at identifying games that are going to be hits or cloning them or what have you, that's a skill set that could be of value in your institution.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they had a strategy behind it, but again, I would just be shocked if they weren't having buyer's remorse at this point. Like I get there's reasons, but I don't know. The mobile market's just weird right now for games.
I mean, yeah, I think the whole gaming market is weird across the board post-pandemic. And I'm not trying to fight you on that they're having buyer's remorse. They very well might be. We don't know the math that they were looking at. So I'm just saying that we can't draw a line from there to the layoffs now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. I'm not drawing a line to the layoffs there at all. I'm just really using this opportunity to say that I don't know why you'd buy Zynga. Also, I love the comment from Elu Spook. My mom and her friends used to play Zynga's games. Like, yeah, exactly. It's they make games that people's moms play. Like, don't buy that company. I don't.
Well, for the record, people's moms are still people, and they can effectively have a market in video games and social games. But I would also say, in the manner of full disclosure, in 2012, I put out an iPhone app with my brother. Called Flipship from Bite Size Games, which was our company at the time. And we were approached by Zynga after its release, to Travis's point, to back Travis up, which I'm, of course, known for doing. That Zynga approached us. We were on the, I can't remember what that list was called, the new and noteworthy list. And I presume they were going down the line of calling everybody that was on that list they didn't recognize. But we did have a business call with Zynga as soon as our game was released.
Yeah, they're vultures.
Why didn't you make $1 billion, Hogue? What are you doing over there?
Because they didn't offer us enough.
Fair enough. Real quick, shout out to Matt Houston just with the $3 Canadian super sticker coming in hot. Why'd you laugh at that, Matt? Thank you.
Oh no, I laughed at the Elu's comment. The most recent
Elu's
one.
comment.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt. What did Elu say this time? Let's see.
He said it's all Hogue does. Agrees with Travis. It's exhausting.
What I'm known for.
That's what he does. That's the Hogue way, dude. I'm just gonna start saying more and more crazy stuff and see how far I can push it.
Katie Cotton said, "I am a people's mom. In fact, I am a grandmother. Damn it, and I play video games."
Do you play Zynga games though?
But do you play Zynga games? Good follow up, Katie.
She plays Diablo.
Yeah, she's a Diablo player.
You're cool.
You're one of the cool ones.
I'm talking about the people playing Candy Crush. Those are moms, and God bless them because they made that company a success. But I would not bet the future of my game company on companies that have only proven that they can make games for 50-year-old people. That's
just Microsoft.
Yeah.
Candy Crush is made by King.
That is true.
ABK deal.
Correct.
That is true.
And I think that part of the ABK deal is probably also not good, but luckily it came bundled with a lot of really useful assets that I think will be relevant in the future. But
it's funny because I can bet you the executive presentation on the ABK purchase is almost exactly the opposite of that.
Exactly.
We've got some legacy IPs like Call of Duty that make some money, and then we got Candy Crush.
Oh no, I'm willing to bet you're 100% correct that they viewed this as like overwhelmingly a mobile play, and they were like, we need mobile, which I don't think it's bad to have mobile in your repertoire. I think every company needs that, but yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm not thinking like a business and I'm thinking like a guy who's a gamer, but those games kill me, man.
I get you. I understand that. The Zynga price was very high at the time. And it hasn't done anything for Take-Two yet. So I don't blame anybody for looking at it and saying, I don't know about this, but I would say 2 years, while a long time to live, is not a long time for a capital expenditure like that.
Jesus.
Full disclosure, by the way. Full disclosure, I also I do play Candy Crush from time to time. Still the hardest video game in the industry. It's actually the hardest game.
Oh, so it's a Souls-like.
They've got algorithms calculating exactly how to get you to one less than then purchasing the turn.
It makes a Souls-like game look like a child's game. Like it's so much harder than anything I've played in a Souls-like. That game is all hard. And it's intentionally hard, right? It's manipulating your brain. It's like it makes you get close, like Hogue said, to beating a level or hitting a wall that's so insurmountably difficult that you can only spend money, which I never do. And so Candy Crush is brutal. If you have a grandma who beat Candy Crush, she's either got a crazy bank account or she's hardcore.
I didn't know Candy Crush had a win state, honestly.
Oh, you can get to the end of it. Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. All right. So we got another super sticker on Hogue's side from DSN. $2.99 super
DSN.
Sticker. Thank you, DSN. Appreciate you. All right. The last thing I was going to mention today, guys, is just a fun rumor that is going around, that is spreading, which I'm sure you probably saw, which is that Far Cry 7, if they call it 7, is going to have another very famous person as the main antagonist. And this time it's going to be Cillian Murphy.
It's a good
choice.
Believe
this? Do you
Terrible
believe it?
choice for a bad series.
Oh my God. First of all, I will defend Far Cry. I will defend Far Cry, but Cillian Murphy is a tremendous choice for what is the Far Cry 3 formula at this point, which is
bad game and an unknown actor. Unproven.
I like how you've at least made your ridiculous sarcasm obvious.
I'm joking, of course. I read that and I was like, okay, yeah, obviously that's a great choice for a game franchise I love, but I don't know. It's like, it's probably the least surprising choice they could have made. I was like, all right, that makes sense.
Well, they missed their chance because he would have been a great choice to lead the cult in 5 because of how that game ends. But whatever 7 does, you could end it the same way, I suppose.
Yeah. What a weird ending to a game, by the way. Can we talk about how weird that game's ending is?
You want to talk about Far Cry 5's ending?
So am I one of the few, and I'm sure I am, that actually like that ending?
I actually also think
hated
it's a clever ending.
Why?
I liked it.
But he was right. Isn't the whole point of Far Cry is that he's supposed to be a psychopath, and he was just correct?
We're gonna spoil Far Cry 5. I know it's like a decade old.
It's been like 18 years.
I know. I know. I'm just putting it out there.
Okay, so yes, there's an end of the world cult in Far Cry 5 that you are trying to stop, and at the end of Far Cry 5, you've succeeded in stopping them, and the world ends.
Yeah, I think that's awesome.
What?
You expect the psychotic conspiracy theorist religious dude to be wrong, and he was right.
But wasn't he wrong? Wasn't he right by coincidence? Isn't that the twist that you find?
Well, yeah, but he's still right.
Yeah, I mean,
so all you have to do is keep saying the world's going to end until it happens eventually.
Aren't there certain political parties that just have that as their platform?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, by 2381, they'll probably be right. You know what I mean? They'll get it right eventually.
Keep saying it'll get there. But no, I think the Far Cry 5 ending is clever. And I like what they did with like the Far Cry post-apocalypse.
And then did you play the expansion where they try to redeem his character, which is crazy?
I usually don't play the expansions.
He has a character arc where they try to make him likable, and he's like, "Oh well, I was kind of mean back then, but maybe now I can be a good guy." And you're like, "What?" Dude,
okay, that sounds ridiculous. I think Dan's talking about New Dawn.
Yeah, New Dawn.
I'm talking about New Dawn too. Yeah.
Oh, that's what you're talking about. Okay, sorry. That's a different game. That's not an expansion.
To Far Cry 6, where you go into his mind.
No. I'm talking about Far Cry 5, New Dawn. It had a plot line where you meet that character again years later, and he's like repentant, and then he goes through like a redemption arc, which is crazy that they tried to do that. It doesn't work at all. Like you're just sitting there like, dude, no, I saw what you did. You're crazy. You're a murderer. And then also you gain powers, like you gain godlike powers. Cause also guess what? He's right about the religion thing too. And if you're just faithful enough, suddenly you can fly and you gain the power of flight and other crap. It's weird, dude.
All sounds feasible.
Game. And you can also recruit
dude,
yourself.
It's so weird. What a weird game.
You can recruit what?
You can recruit your character in Far Cry 5. You can recruit yourself as a follower.
Wow.
In New Dawn.
So you take over the role of him, and then you can recruit your character from 5 as a follower.
You don't take over the role as him, but you take over, your whatever your character is. But yeah.
Okay, different character. Gotcha.
Yeah, your character makes it
Didn't
never
you
actually
review that for us, Dan?
My recollection is New Dawn is pretty good.
New Dawn is pretty good, but the story is so weird in a way where it's like, are they advocating for death cults and also like crazy zealot religious stuff? It's just really odd.
That was the twins, I think.
I have never said this sentence before, but Birth 90 is completely right. If you've never read this short story, it is fantastic. From Arthur C. Clarke, The 9 Billion Names of God, has a similar kind of arc to Far Cry 5. So spoilers on the short story from, I don't even know, the 50s. But it is an excellent one. It's also kind of haunting in the same way that Far Cry 5 is.
Wow. Dan, you did review it February of 2019, 5 years ago, my friend.
I thought you meant 18 years ago. Isn't it an 18-year-old game? According
I
to
liked
Dan?
it, man. It was fun. Yeah. More Far Cry. It's always good.
I'm passes
I think
slowly
Ubisoft,
in video games.
Totally
it is more Far Cry. I think the story is horrifying in that game.
I don't love Far Cry 5, but I don't love some of the beats with like the politics in Far Cry 5. But
I didn't like the drug. I don't like being pulled out of the world and pushed into something. That
I don't like how many times you become unconscious in that game. It happens like every hour. You become unconscious. It's crazy,
and you can't avoid it. You're just like, oh, okay.
No, it's how they set up the story quests. Is you just
I will say I found out in the worst possible way that some people really, really, really love Joseph Seed and think he's the best villain ever in any video game. And I found that out by criticizing his character in the DLC for Far Cry 6.
Yep, we have talked about those comments, Travis, because you did get a lot of pushback for saying he was a boring villain.
He is boring. I'm sorry.
No, a lot of people did really like him. Yeah, as an actor. Yeah.
Oh no, I think his performance is great, but he's a boring villain.
The character, you mean? Yeah, I got
Yeah.
you. I liked Far Cry 6 quite a bit actually. I really enjoyed it.
Far
I
Cry
reviewed
6
that
is
one.
great. I still haven't finished it.
Far Cry 6 is pretty good.
I actually, in all seriousness, and I've had this since I reviewed it. I literally have the full Ultimate Edition expansion pass sitting here with the code. So if someone wants that in our chat, just DM me. You can have it.
Yeah, that's the kind of giveaways we're doing here, folks. You want Far Cry 6?
It's literally just sitting
It's a
with
garage sale.
Yeah, it's a pile of stuff. So if you want the Far Cry 6 expansion pass on Xbox, by the way, just DM me. I'll give it to you.
You know how we should do giveaways now? You should have the item in your background with a sign that says free on it, like when you see on the side of the street.
Dude, I
and
swear
then
it's
just
sitting,
like wait
here. Hold on.
you about it, and that will be how we give away things. I think that's a great idea. Free
There you
sign.
go. You know,
I
like 6. I think they did a good job of fake Cuba.
The code's on the back, so just DM me. It's yours.
Maybe you should just show the back. First person to enter it wins.
No,
That's
they can
terrible.
DM me.
That's a lot of people feeling bad about themselves.
Yeah. What was I going to say? So anyway, Cillian Murphy. I mean, I love Cillian, so I think this could be really cool. I do
Has he
sometimes.
been in anything I know about?
Stop it! You threw me off with that comment. I was like, wait, what? I do think they underutilized. What's his name?
Giancarlo.
Yeah, Giancarlo.
I think it's because he was too big, and I worry that that's going to be the same problem here. Like when you kind of have a big actor, I don't know how much you can like use their voice or include them in cutscenes because they're just busy people.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I would hate to see Cillian Murphy and then be underutilized, right? Like give him a full role and then I'll be happy. But either way, I'm looking forward to the next Far Cry. They're good games.
Giancarlo isn't in a lot of cutscenes, but he did do the recordings for like the PA announcements that I thought helped.
I did like the performance. Yeah.
His performance is great. I just don't think he was as present as like the Far Cry 4 villain. And I think it's because he's a famous actor who could only be bothered to record so many lines, and it's also hard to get like pickups, later on in the process because you don't know how many times you're going to get them in the studio. And so I just that's the one caveat I'll say that I worry about when you go with these big shot actors is like, it's sort of like the Peter Dinklage Destiny problem where eventually they just had to replace that guy because there was no way that dude was coming in to record lines all the time,
And because everybody hated him.
Yeah, he was pretty bad.
It wasn't great, that's for sure.
That
it was very
wizard
flat.
came from the moon.
Yeah, it's so
The
flat.
wizard did come from the moon.
It's not like I was doing the voiceover.
Yeah, dude, that's crazy.
Too flat. Yeah, so Elu asked a good question. Really looking forward to that. We assume it's going to be somewhere in Great Britain or thereabouts. That would be interesting if they do a Europe kind of Far Cry.
If it's Cillian Murphy, yeah, I mean, it should probably be straight up like Ireland versus England. I don't know if they have the backstop to do that, but that's what I would imagine.
Yeah, when have Ireland and England never gotten along? You're silly, Hogue. Come on.
I have a better idea than both of those. I want Cillian Murphy to reprise his role as Scarecrow, and he's the villain, and I'm Batman. It's a Batman game.
No. He's literally Scarecrow from Batman Begins, but it's not a Batman game. They just completely steal it.
Just place them, dude. Yeah.
Nobody acknowledges it.
And we'll have time for their favorite mechanic in these games, which is he can spray you with fear, and then you go unconscious, and you have the dream sequence. Oh, dude, let's go, baby. Scarecrow.
Ubisoft will expect our checks in a year or two. Thank you.
No, but seriously, has the actor been anything I know?
Okay,
for those that don't recognize Cillian Murphy's name,
today.
You might recognize him as the Oscar award-winning Oppenheimer in Oppenheimer.
Oh,
he
weird.
plays that guy in Oppenheimer. I forget his name. Yeah.
He's one of the only big name actors not in Dune 2.
Also true. All right, we're gonna go ahead and close out because we're coming off the rails. It's been a good show, lots of game talk. Thank you all for hanging out with us. Travis is just looking for another comment, so I'm gonna get us out of here quickly. But before we do that, I will shout out a bunch of reviews over at the SG side. So Witchfire's up, Rising Tide today from Final Fantasy 16. We've got a review of Withering Rooms, which is a small indie 2D game. That's going to go up tomorrow. That's quite good, so you can check that out. And of course, we'll have No Rest for the Wicked probably later this week as well. Travis, what you got, man?
I think the Wicked.
I've got another Crab's Treasure review on Tuesday. I've got No Rest for the Wicked review probably tomorrow in written form only, and then a video version later. And this week I've got the final piece of content for the month for our IGN first game, Eternal Strands, which is the first hands-on preview. You're just going to hear my thoughts about the game and what I think of it. That is also going live on Tuesday. So hopefully you guys have been keeping an eye on all of the Eternal Strands content. This week we got 2 pieces, including a written preview and a interview with the art team on how they accomplished their art style in that game. So some more cool content there. Aside from that, I still can't talk about that thing. And yeah, I got a lot of content. So look for 2 reviews and a preview this week. Well,
you can tell your contacts at Yellow Brick that you did convince me to put Eternal Strands on my list of things to look forward to. So I think it's a very good preview. If you guys haven't seen it, Travis has written a whole lot of words about this game, and it looks very, very interesting.
Yeah, I think they got a shot at making something pretty special. So more on that on Tuesday, and that will conclude this IGN first. And I'm excited about to just show you guys what I think.
Cool. Yeah, I can't tell if I'm going to like it or not. Just to reiterate, if I don't like it, I will certainly let them know. What you got going on?
Well, I mentioned that we did a Hangouts and Headlines this past week about some of the drama at National Public Radio, NPR. We talk about media in that show. And there's a lot to talk about, I think. So if you're interested in that topic, please do check out the channel, Hoglaw YouTube. And then also, it's April 21st today. We're going to find out whether I won the Stroke Hero Award from the American Stroke Association on May 1st. So that'll be pretty soon. Hopefully we won. I'm hopeful. But we'll see what happens there in, I guess, 9 or 10 days. So we'll have one more Bitcast before then. And then hopefully I won.
Awesome. Very cool. Travis, I can tell you're chomping at the bit.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I was gonna make a stroke joke. I'm not gonna. Let's move on.
We're gonna go ahead and close out. Mr. Rodriguez, anything you want to shout out? Go Kings.
He's
Say go
at his
Kings,
phone, bro.
Yeah, go Kings. NHL playoffs this Sunday start, or actually they've already started.
Yeah, I don't really watch hockey.
Did the Sharks?
Yeah, I know. It's my sport on this panel. So
the Red Wings were knocked out, unfortunately.
Yes, they were. They made a valiant effort at the end, but they didn't make it. Yeah.
How are my Sharks? San Jose Sharks.
Sharks are one of the 3 worst teams in the whole league.
Nice.
Yeah, right behind my Blackhawks.
Classy. Not a lot of ice.
Are the worst team in the league. No, for California, it's the Kings. Both the Ducks and the Sharks suck. So
cool.
Yep. So anyway, we play Monday night against the same team we've played the past 2 years, who have knocked us out the past 2 years and probably will this year. So yeah, good times.
You're a Kings fan?
I'm a diehard Kings fan, man.
Wow,
my Kings fan. It's like
I mean, I don't know. Maybe you have jerseys for every team depending on which one's winning.
No.
I don't know how sports work.
No, I don't know how sports work. Nixie, go Rangers. I think the Rangers are going to be just fine. They are ridiculously good. Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us. Of course, we will be back next week. Check out all the stuff we talked about, of course. Thank you for hanging out with us. Appreciate the generosity as always. Hope you have a great week of gaming, and we will see you next Sunday. Until then.